Welcome to another Talks with Liem Lee. This video podcast is available on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, and all the major platforms. I am your host, Liem. I'm a software engineer, and my sidekick is...
My name is Emmett. I am a realtor here in Las Vegas. I help people buy and sell homes. I also have a degree in accounting, so if you have questions about simple math and tracking money, a spreadsheet is usually the answer. We're delighted today to have Jack with us here on the show. Jack is a former U.S. badass Marine. Welcome to the show. Tell us about you. What are you doing?
Good morning. My name is Jack Hart. I actually own an Anytime Fitness here in Henderson.
Excellent.
I had my gym for 13 years. And so you could say we're going to talk a little bit about entrepreneurship or military or relationships or self-development, any of those things. Where would you guys like to start?
Let's go with the Marines. Let's go with your history with that.
Thank you for making America awesome, because without our Marines and fighting forces, I think bad guys in the world would be more, without our strength, it's like choose your bully, right? Do you want the U.S. in charge, or do you want somebody else in charge?
China. No.
Yeah, and I really appreciate that. Thank you. I will say that I went in when I was about 18 years old. Actually, I think I had my 19th birthday in boot camp. Prior to that, I was not one to, I look back, and I'm probably my own worst critic in a lot of ways. But I look back on one of those. I learned good work etiquette or work ethic from my father and my mother, but I'm always kind of hard on myself. I look back and I say I never really finished a lot of things.
Oh.
But when I was in the Marine Corps, a lot of that changed. I definitely came back as the best version of myself, and without the Marine Corps, I certainly would not be where I am today. So I'm really proud to have served. I wind up in a unique situation, not unique, but there's a lot of people who feel this way, where you wanted to serve your country, but you also wanted to get an education. So I decided to go reserves. So I went in the reserves because I wanted to go to college. So I went to boot camp, and then we go to our school, or MOS school, our job school. And then we come
that's
back.
where you specialize in a certain type of role, right? Is that the idea there? Okay.
Yeah. So whatever that may be, whether you're a truck driver or infantryman or anything in between, you'll go and you'll learn your skill, and then you'll go to the real world, which actually I find really makes a phenomenal Marine, because a lot of times if you've just gone active duty and only done active duty and had very little life experience before, it's harder to engage with civilian life afterwards. Whereas those of us who went to boot camp and then came home and, had immediate engagement with civilian life, we can then balance a little more easily. So huge props to anybody who went active duty.
Yeah.
My particular instance, I felt like it was a better fit for me to go get my degree. And then I went to college, and so I was in for 8 years. And during that time, 9/11 happened, and then we were activated and sent to Iraq. So I did one tour in Iraq, and
before you get into that, so are you saying that if you go in full time and you become a badass rifleman, and you spend all your time being a badass rifleman, then you are excellent at that, but then you might not have a well-rounded set of other skills? Is that what you mean?
I guess what I mean is that we all have the ability to do both. It's wherever we focus our attention, those things live, right? So for active duty personnel, like I really did want to do that, but I also wanted to get my education. And I was kind of ignorant at the time, right? Like, knowing what I know now, I may have acted on active duty because I didn't realize the level of education you get while being active duty. If you're active duty, you can go to school. I think there's limitations on that kind of thing, but a lot of times there'll be a local college that you can go to. I find it's probably there's benefits to both. But in my instance, I was also a little nervous. I was like, what if I don't like this whole Marine Corps thing? What if I'm committing 4 years of my life and it's horrible, right? So I was also told that if I really wanted to go to active duty afterwards, that it wouldn't be a problem.
Nice.
So in the end, it was just let me get my degree, and then we wound up getting activated and becoming active duty for a little while anyway.
Yeah.
So I have the experience of both, and there's definitely pros and cons to both, but I'm certainly glad that I did it. Anyone who has ever served ever deserves big props. I think anybody who just wants to make the world a better place and defend their country and is very patriotic.
Yeah, there's two parts of that. One is you're literally putting your life on the line in some capacity, right? The moment you enlist and sign up, you're saying I'm willing to give my life up to, I'm willing to give everything up to my life for this nation and my people, right? So that's a huge thing. And then just getting up and doing push-ups and running before breakfast is pretty painful. That's probably what's kept me out.
Yeah, I've never been much of a runner. Like even at my best, I focus on other things. And I'm sure that at some point we'll talk about fitness. But
yeah,
as far as my family, I'm actually the last of 7. And what's strange is that out of all of my family, I'm actually the only one who decided to serve. I think everybody else had different priorities and maybe got married earlier or had a more evolved or high-end degree. Like I have a couple of brothers who are doctors. I have brothers who are in marketing or in sales or in science and all this other stuff. So, I mean, just different career paths. Plus, I also kind of felt a little lost.
Yeah.
I didn't know really what I wanted to do. And my father had served, and my grandfather on my mom's side had served.
Nice.
And I just felt like it was a good opportunity. So
yeah, and life's funny when you're 18 or 19 in the U.S. You start making adult choices, and those paths that you start down kind of direct your life in a certain way or another, right?
Yeah, especially if you don't have a lot of structure, or even if you do have a lot of structure in your life and you just know that that's the right way to go, there's huge benefit. I mean, I didn't get into this because of the benefits. I just really wanted to serve, and I really felt that it was my duty to serve my country. I typically live a life of servitude, if you will. I am a business owner, but I consider that all my members are in charge, and I'm just trying to do the best I can.
Yeah. So 9/11 happens, and then you get activated, right? So you go from reserve to being frontline. Is that a shocking moment, or is that?
I feel the term frontline should be reserved for people who are literally like
getting shot at.
Yeah.
Okay.
I may have gotten shot at a little bit, but it wasn't like.
Well, then that counts.
It wasn't like these other guys have gone through much worse. I am not going to take credit for that. But we did. So we flew into Kuwait and then drove into Iraq. And that bit's a bit unnerving. You know, you train for all these things, and the time comes and you hear about deaths are occurring in 2 very specific ways. One is people are, 3, you engaging in a firefight. 2 is you're knocking down doors and you walk into a room and somebody shoots you.
Right.
Or 3rd is you're driving down the road and you get blown up. So a lot of people were getting hit with these roadside bombs.
They call them IEDs, right? Is that the same thing?
IEDs.
Okay.
Yep. And my job was driving. So there's a lot of stress in that environment when you're constantly searching for something that's pretty much undetectable. So there's a high stress.
I feel stressed enough when I'm driving on the freeway looking for dumb drivers hitting me. So I couldn't.
Look out for that paper towel.
Wait, so sorry, go ahead.
I couldn't imagine the stress of a driver. I mean, and then also you got 4, 6, 8 people in your car.
Usually no more than, we have Hummers, right? I guess it really depends. In a lot of different situations, we've had, there's different types of vehicles that we would use. I've done everything from driving forklifts to driving Hummers to driving 5 tons to driving buses, it's everything in between. So there've been moments where I've had 50 people on a bus with me and I was in charge of their safety.
Yeah, jeez, man.
What about those 8-wheeled Oshkosh go anywhere looking?
Those
you need a special license for that?
Yeah, that's definitely more of a specialty kind of thing.
Okay. What about
I'm
strikers?
surprised they weren't more interchanged, but
Oh yeah.
it's,
Oh, they probably weren't. The strikers weren't around back then. I'm thinking the strikers are these newer 8-wheeled. Fun looking.
right. Yeah. Well, we had something different. I forget the name of them, but they were super long and they had 8 or 10 wheels, and
Nice.
they were kind of a beast, but they were kind of a nightmare to work on. And yeah, anyway.
So literally you're transporting dudes towards the front, and if you hit a mine and you get blown up, then it's your fault. Is that the gig, or?
In so few words, I guess that. I mean, we're typically in a convoy. Like when Marines travel, typically we're traveling together with at least a couple of vehicles, if not 3 or 4 or 5. So when we're traveling from one point to another, we're prepared.
Rolling deep.
Rolling deep.
Gotcha.
Right. And my girlfriend's walking past.
Yay!
So, saying hi.
She got a good looking dude.
Most people would say the opposite. They would say, "I got
really? Hey, so the moment that you find out that, hey, you're going to war, you're getting activated. How did you feel? Because you're a young dude still, right? You're in your early 20s.
I must have been in my early 20s.
Yeah.
I think there's a couple of analogies I could use, but I'll put it as plainly as this: the moment I know where I was when I was listening to what was happening for 9/11.
Yeah.
And immediately we're calling in to our unit and saying, we know we're leaving. When are we leaving? Like, what do we need to do? Where are we at? Like, we've been training for years for this point. And even if we hadn't, boot camp would be certainly enough to get you mentally prepared enough to be able to adjust in that situation. But, we were all ready. I'm sure that all of us were nervous in our own right. We don't know what to expect. And anytime there's any kind of unknown whatsoever, it leads to a little bit of anxiety, regardless of how prepared you are. But I guess the more often you do things like that, the more comfortable you feel. I try to challenge myself to a little bit of discomfort on the regular. And keep myself in that mentality of being able to handle any situation at any time whenever I can. Of course, we can't always handle every situation, but we can just do our best.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Nice. Okay, so you're driving in towards the front. You didn't get blown up, we can see.
Yeah. Oh, so I guess where I was so 9/11 happens. It was not that much longer before we actually invaded Iraq, right? So we moved in. And I guess the war, as it being called a war, I give quotes because it changes. Like, it goes from war to it was Operation Iraqi Freedom, and then it moved to Enduring Freedom. So it was more protection and
dealing with the locals and
stability and that kind of thing. So I was there 6 months after, like, the first boots were on ground, and then I was there for about 6 months. So it transitioned from Iraqi Freedom to Enduring Freedom right about that time.
I see.
So, honestly, I think back on the Marine Corps and I have very fond memories. And I think I'm back on those moments, and I'm happy to have been surrounded by such great people.
That's awesome.
My Marines were amazing. So.
Yeah, so for our listeners that don't know, the U.S. Marines are the force that go in first. If you're going into hostile territory, you're not sending the Army in first, and the Navy's in the water, Air Force is in the sky. So the Marines, the job for the Marines is go in first, right, and kick some butt and kick the doors open. Is that the? Yeah,
but and there's also different as an entirety of a division. We won't call it a division, but a division of the armed forces. The Marines are typically first to fight. That's kind of our label.
Yeah.
However, there's all the other branches who contribute, as well as Navy SEALs who are super badass and do a lot of, behind enemy lines type stuff that doesn't require an army of people, and they're handling business really well. And then, of course, there's the Marine Corps recon teams, which are also super elites, like SEALs.
Yeah.
We're more like reconnaissance and surveillance and that kind of thing. And then Marines, we all train as a rifleman first. So we're all considered riflemen, which is an infantry term.
Yeah.
And then we all get a specialized job afterwards, whether that be to just continue to just be an infantryman or to move into some other infantry style. There's different types of gunners, and you got to think it's kind of its own business, right?
Yeah.
So we've all got support and logistics and infantry and everything in between. So there's a lot of good opportunity to learn skills.
Yeah.
Plus, Marines are always trying to push to be better and better and better. So they're constantly your NCOs who are your people who are in charge of you are typically trying to influence you to follow up on continuing education because they know that they want someone good to replace them as they move up. So they're constantly training the people behind them to do the next person's job.
That's great.
So there's a lot of good training that goes into that. I miss that almost as much as I miss my Marines, because camaraderie is probably, we say we're the biggest fraternity in the world, basically. I mean, there is certainly nothing like being a Marine, but we have a certain brotherhood that
is there a competitiveness to being a Marine that you don't find in the other services? Is there a certain hard edge? If you're a non-ambitious dude, you're not going to pick the Marines. You're going to look for an easier job, right? Or is that not an accurate?
I think there's exceptions to every rule. And I won't say that every Marine I ever met was a hard-charging, hard-edged, badass, crazy person, right?
Yeah, storm the beach.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We get all types, but I will say that typically people will choose a branch of the military dependent upon what they feel they're capable of giving.
Yeah.
So, and that's not always the case. I know a lot of guys in the Navy who went into the Navy because they wanted to be SEALs. I have other friends who went into the Navy because they wanted to serve. I have others that wanted to travel the world. I have others that wanted, everybody's got their own reasons for doing it.
Yeah.
And again, I'll remind you that as a whole, all of us pick on each other all the time. But we won't let you pick on them. You know what I mean? I can rag a sailor guy and he can rag on me. Yeah. But you can't. You know what I mean?
Awesome.
It's kind of like it's my brother. So
that's a great attitude. I like that.
Yeah, we're a tight knit community, regardless of what division you've or branch of the military that you've served in. We certainly all pick on each other a little bit. In fact, one of the funniest. Not funny, but a friend of mine, his name's Token, and he always says, almost every other time I see him, he's like, Jack, you know why they let the Marines on the boats with all those sailors? And I'll say, no, Token, why? And he's like, they needed somebody to dance with.
That's funny.
And the joke got old real quick, but it shows the point of we like to pick each other, and it's funny. So. But to better answer your question, I would say that I picked it because I felt that it was the most impactful way for me to overcome my own enemies, my own ghosts, my own problems, for me to dive in deep to the hardest in anything that I really do. Because if I could make it out the other side, then I would be the best version of myself. And I know the Marines take a different approach. Their approach is to break you down as much as they possibly can and then build you back up as the best version of yourself. And they certainly did that for me. So I'm very grateful.
What were some of the craziest stories you had while driving, while transporting the crew?
What's funny is that I really don't have that many stories. I look back, first of all, I don't have a fabulous memory. So if I'm saying things that are wrong, it's not because I'm purposefully trying to make them wrong. It's because I have a shit memory.
Yeah, I'm with you.
But I think my fondest memories are typically the inappropriate stuff that's just between the guys and doing stupid things and
nice,
really, really randomness that Marines get into. But I remember there being a couple of I remember the drive in from Kuwait to Iraq and us. Deboarding the plane in in Kuwait. And that level of stress, because you don't know what's happening. You think you're in a safe zone, but you don't know.
Yeah.
And then mounting up in a vehicle and driving in and taking over a whole base and establishing that. And I remember the most random thing was getting shot at. Was, you know, when you're driving around a Hummer, they're a small target.
Yeah.
And you're in the middle of the desert. So if anybody's going to take a pop shot at you, you know, that's why they use IED so much. But at one point, we were nearing the time in which we were leaving, and a bunch of Ukrainian generals came in, and some American generals and colonels, and maybe it wasn't a general, but we had a lot of officers on a bus, and I had to drive them from point A to point B. And, you know, it's through the desert from one main city to another. And certainly getting shot at, but then you see we have a security detail. So we have what was called stay back then. They basically peel off and they go after the group. It is not my job to go after them so much it is to ensure that my passengers get to where they need to be safely. Right. So
Gotcha.
Big difference between going after somebody and making sure that other people are safe, I guess.
Yeah.
So,
don't sell yourself short. That's still important. That's you're not going after the bad guys, but you're making sure the big shots don't get taken out by the bad guys. So I know I know Hummers are nice. No, Hummers can be like Hummers can be like a regular vehicle, or they can be kind of armored up, like an armored Hummer. Mm-hmm. So was that the case there? And then was your bus a regular bus, or was it a little bit armored?
It was a big white bus. It was a huge target in the middle of a brown sport.
The shoot me.
It's not like they camouflage the bus. No.
Okay.
So camouflage, basically, the way that works is that it typically makes it harder for you to hone in on the shape, for you to sight in and shoot at it. Yeah. So basically, when you have all those different colors of aligning, it's supposed to distract from being a better target, more or less.
Yeah.
But Hummers, we obviously had a variety of Hummers. Typically, they come set up to where they can be like a 4-door or a 2-door with a truck bed. Mm-hmm. And there's the ones that have the canopy tops, and there's ones that have armor tops. Back then, that wasn't really armor. It was more like it was hard, but it was not. Yeah, nowadays they have like I can't even keep up with the changes, but you got to think I went in 1996 and I got out in 2004, and I guess Iraq was probably around 2002, I guess, give or take. Yeah. So that's been almost 20 years. Mm-hmm. Right? Okay. So there's been a lot of changes, and it was also our first big fight in a while since Desert Storm, I guess, right? And certainly the technology hadn't changed a whole lot, and Hummers were still, I wouldn't say they were new, but you know, we had them for a bit. And Marines were the last to get anything, so they had probably been around.
You're just gonna get it trashed anyway.
Yeah, but you know, it was a life-changing experience, and you certainly you're relying on your brother or your sister next to you, and
well, the reason I ask is for our audience. So like we drive around in Toyota Corollas. And then if we see a Hummer, you know, it looks like a big steel. This thing might as well be a tank. Yeah. But what they don't understand is that like
leather seats and air conditioning and everything. Yeah. We don't have to.
Yeah.
Hummer became a luxury brand well after the H1 and the H2 came out. So it is a no frills metal box with wheels that's kind of tough, or it can roll over stuff. It's got like degrees of elevation that it can go up, and it's kind of like it's definitely an off-road vehicle, but it is not fancy. No air conditionings. Most of the time we rolled around without doors on it because it was so hot.
Yeah,
that it was better to get a breeze than it was to get, even if it felt like a hairdryer, because it feels if it's 120, 130 degrees outside, it doesn't matter. It's just hot.
Yeah. So for civilians, like, we see this metal steel Hummer and we think a bullet would have a tough time going through, but we don't know that automatic rifle fire, that can cut through that kind of metal, right?
Right. And I think it depends upon the caliber of round that they're using, what kind of bullet they're using, that kind of the rifle or sidearm that they're using. Some, I think, had an easier time penetrating than others. And I want to say, you know, I feel like I'm not an expert anymore. Like, I've forgotten so many things over the years, but I want to say that.
Getting soft on us, Jack. No, I'm fucking with you.
Or the memory problem's getting worse.
Yeah. What were we talking about? Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's okay to transition out of that world, right? That's not the life you live anymore. So we're kind of digging into your past and finding out.
And honestly, I haven't thought about it that much lately. In fact, somebody asked me about that last night. I went to a little pool party with my girlfriend, and we were hanging out with her coworkers. And somebody had mentioned something about the military, and somebody else had served, and so did I. And we started talking about it, and both of us looked at each other like, you know, I'm just not a good storyteller, to be honest with you. All the stuff that's in my head would sound really stupid if I said it out loud. I don't remember. I remember. I just don't want to say it.
Did you ever interact with any local people when you were out in the desert there? Did you have any connections or?
And again, everyone has their own perspective on why we were doing what we were doing. Yeah. And you gotta understand that we, as military personnel, we are not politicians. Yeah. And as hard as you may make it, as hard as it may sound, when you go to work and they tell you to do a job and you think it doesn't matter how you feel about it. Yeah. It matters that you do a job. And if you're in a hostile situation, you make sure you do your job so that you and your brothers and sisters can come home. Right. So certainly, but we had some really good interaction with some locals, and then we also read into some other things that the area in that area of the Middle East has been at war for forever. Yeah. So there's been people in the past who tried to come in and take over, and then it's a cyclical thing where somebody's always kind of dominating the area, and they're not for good reason, aren't very trusting initially. Yeah. But the kids actually were the ones who were surprisingly, you know, like, kids don't have those old world experiences and haven't had any horrifically traumatic things. Not all, some. Right. So when we come to town, we're just something unique and different, and maybe they've learned a little bit of English or whatever. That's interesting, yeah. Prior. And there was a lot of really nice engagement. Like, we did our best. If we had any food whatsoever, a lot of times we would even give our food, even if we didn't, it left us with no food. Yeah. We would still give our food to people who, you know, we wanted to do the right thing, and we certainly were there to try to help. That's awesome. So, we had a lot of good interaction with a lot of locals. On the brighter side, I typically hadn't drank a lot in a long time, and typically, if you find yourself out of country, there's not a lot of opportunity to find yourself any alcohol. But
there's no nightclubs around.
They are entrepreneurs. They are serious entrepreneurs, man. They would line up at the front gate with, like, I actually had some Greek beer. I had some whiskey. Like, and if you've had a really long day and it's 120, 130 degrees and it's hot, and you're already having a hard time sleeping because of anxiety and everything else. Yeah. That I would have towards the end, I would have like half of a Coke and like a little shot of whiskey in it, and it would help me just knock right out and sleep. Nice. So true props to the entrepreneurial spirit.
They found a supply line for alcohol to get to the front.
Absolutely.
While driving, did you happen to have any strategies for yourself for looking for IEDs?
You know, it's kind of hard. The good part about where you're driving most of the time. If a lot of times where they're trying to do that is upon freeways. You're leaving from one major area to another. So you can't really detect that kind of stuff, but typically I find myself swaying away from just about anything, even if it was just some sand that had rolled off the side of the edge and it was collecting. I just did my best to kind of avoid whatever I could. It may have looked like I was drunk driving, but I wasn't.
Strategic.
Yeah, strategically drunk driving.
In your boot camp and your training and all your time in the Marines, did you ever get to fire a shoulder launched explosive projectile? Because as a kid, a bazooka is the coolest looking.
I remember training with one and doing them virtually. I don't remember whether I ever did that or not. I mean, we threw grenades.
Yeah.
I shot a lot of different weapons. So you'd shoot I think at the time it was a 9mm pistol.
Yeah.
You have our AR-15 style M16.
Yeah.
And there's another weapon called a SAW, which is a squad automatic weapon.
Yeah.
So basically, it's usually like a 2-gun person thing where it's a heavy machine gun and somebody else carries an extra barrel for you, or you'll carry it yourself, because it unloads so many rounds so quickly that the barrel will glow red hot, and you need to swap it out with another barrel in order to continue laying down fire. So I mean, it's a cool weapon.
Yeah.
I don't remember. I remember blowing some shit up. That was fun.
Nice.
I forgot about that. When we went into Iraq, we had actually taken over an abandoned Iraqi Air Force base.
Okay.
So there was a runway.
Yeah.
And there were these airplane hangars, but they were concrete, so it was supposed to deflect any kind of projectiles, or if somebody was trying to blow up a plane or whatever. So they would put the planes in the hangars. And because it was on an air base, they had munitions there. And when we got there, no one had ever disposed of them, because it's not something we would reuse, and we don't want anybody else to use it against us.
Oh, yeah.
So we would destroy that kind of thing. So whether it be bombs or bullets or explosives or anything like that. So I remember working with EOD.
EOD, yeah. Explosive ordnance.
Yeah. And we dug a big trench with a I don't know how we got a bulldozer, but we had a bulldozer. And one with the back, the for digging.
Yeah.
And dug a huge pit and then filled it with just about everything, and then they put some type of plastic explosive on it, and we went far away. But even I don't even remember how far away we went, but we were within vision, like we could see it.
Yeah.
And we took cover behind some like old buildings and like behind the dump trucks or whatever that was out there.
Yeah.
But when we hit that explosive, you've never felt anything like that before. Like that. Wow. That type of explosion resonates, and there's this shock wave that kind of comes at you, and there's debris that still hits us. I mean, we were in a safe area, but you still have you hear stuff hitting the building, and you hear stuff hitting the metal on the cars or bulldozers next to us.
Yeah.
It was really cool. I mean,
blow some shit
really
up.
I mean, that was certainly the biggest explosion I've seen. So that was fun memory. I forgot about that. Thanks for that.
You're here in Las Vegas, right, Jack? You're Henderson, you said?
I am.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm in Henderson. So for those of you who don't know, Henderson and Vegas kind of connect. You can't really tell when you leave one and you hit the other. But I have been here. I'm born and raised in Louisiana, New Orleans.
Yeah.
And I moved here what must have been about 15 years ago. I did have a quick layover in Orange County, but that just kind of wasn't for me. I was there for about 6 months and just didn't feel right for me. So then I came to Las Vegas, and here I have been for nearly 15 years.
Well, I ask because I'm sure, as you know, on certain holidays like 4th of July and New Year's Eve, Las Vegas lights off a lot of personal fireworks. Like,
I love it.
yeah, there's a limit to like you can't get super big fireworks in Las Vegas. But if you go to the next county over or go up to an Indian reservation, yeah. So if you go a little bit out of town, you can buy like higher caliber fireworks.
I had no idea.
So it's hilarious because
I know Bob at discount fireworks.
yeah, I mean there's nights of the year where the sky is just exploding. You're like, holy shit! You know what? I think Las Vegas has more ordnance than most countries. Like I've been to other countries that can't put up this much firepower.
Yeah. Well, I love the fact that the casinos put on those. I mean, it's a beautiful sight to see, and it feels so patriotic, and it feels it feels really good that people would come out and celebrate like that.
Yeah, it's an interesting tradition of our people. Let's blow some shit up.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't ours originally, right?
Yeah.
Didn't that come from Canada?
Yeah.
Great idea, by the way.
Since you left the Marines for a while now, and you had I guess more of a life experience. I can't say more of a life experience, but you have a different life experience now to think about your time in the Marines. Do you think about the time there and reflect on the good, the bad, what the government was doing there, the good and bad of that?
A non-military opinion?
Yeah.
What's that?
Are you asking for a non-military opinion?
Yeah.
A civilian opinion, I guess.
Okay. You know, and honestly, I haven't thought about it all that much lately. I think it's kind of coming up again. You know, it's no secret that I'm a Marine, but it's not often where people engage me on those kind of things. And I've since, you know, have other, and it's been 20 years. So there's that. I certainly have mixed feelings on it. And I think everybody should have mixed feelings on it. Like, if you're hardcore in life in general, if you're hardcore one way or the other, and you don't have any room in your heart or in your brain to be able to take in new information and be able to adjust that a little bit, then something's wrong. Your their bias, I feel, is just can ruin people. But in this particular instance, and I'm sure we'll touch on that a little bit later. At first, I certainly just thought that I was doing my duty and doing the right thing and trying to protect people. And looking back, I feel like I did that. Like, I feel like that was a big, very impactful thing, and a very helpful thing. However, you kind of start to wonder, you know, what were their actual weapons of mass destruction, and whether there was or there wasn't, to put American lives on in jeopardy, and a lot of Americans died. But I you know, we all signed up for that kind of thing too. You know, I mean, we all knew that there was an opportunity to help others, but there's also the potential liability of losing life. Right? So whether it be your own life or your brother, your sister next to you, it's certainly something we all signed up for. But, you know, we go in there with a moral compass, a good moral code. We just try to keep doing the right thing. And looking back, it's a tough call to say that we had no impact or not. I certainly know that there were people there who were better off because we went. And I don't know if I can say much else.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
No, I think you got a great attitude, though. Saying that to not have mixed feelings would be to be missing.
Yeah, and to be hardcore one-sided the whole time. That would be bad.
Yeah. You got to think there's, I mean, it's like yin and yang, right? Like there's no such thing as all evil without the potential for any kind of good, and all good without any potential for some evil. I mean, there's no utopia, right? This is the real world we live in.
Yeah.
As much as we all want to be better, some people are willing to put in the work and become better people, and some people aren't. And some people are willing, just like in entrepreneurship and in life and in relationships and everything else, all that stuff takes work. And if you aren't willing to work for it, you're not likely going to be very successful or very happy.
Yeah.
I've heard somewhere someone say that we may look back on Iraq and Afghanistan, and it won't be as much as Vietnam War, where people will look back and kind of wonder what America was doing. There's a little bit of correlation where I've heard someone say we're going to look back at Afghanistan maybe in 20 years or longer, depending when more information is released about it, what was actually completed and what helped out the country and how the country is afterwards. There's correlations on how, like Vietnam, things didn't quite get better, and then some people are thinking Afghanistan will be the same, and or Iraq.
I guess I should add to that, right? Like on the very pro side of the reason why we were there, you have different countries and different dictators and different everything, right? So there were some really, really horrifically horrible people in charge in these countries, right? And they were mass killing people.
Yeah.
So you got to think, even if there wasn't weapons of mass destruction, do you think it's okay for genocide to occur, for somebody who just doesn't like a group of people to go in and try to murder an entire civilization or an entire culture? I mean, I do see the United States as one of the only countries that's really capable or even willing to be Big Brother. And I mean Big Brother in a good way. I mean, like somebody's got to hold some kind of accountability to other countries. And because we have the capacity and the morality to try to do that, I think, you know, it's left to the rest of us who want to serve to agree with that and continue that fight. I mean, it left unchecked, how many countless people would be dead now, right? So whether it be Saddam Hussein or whether it be, I mean, when you think about Afghanistan and all these, there's a lot of genuinely horrible conflict and war that's already occurring there. And we're just trying to stop. A lot of times we're just trying to stop the fighting. And a lot of times that requires violence. I mean, that requires.
So are you saying that any way you look at it, any way you want to slice it, if you look back on the situation in Iraq, Saddam Hussein and his regime were pretty evil. They were doing some pretty terrible things. And I think at the time they had something like the 5th largest army in the world. So it's not something you can ignore if a bad guy and his powerful government is, if they're doing enough bad things, how much can you turn a blind eye?
You see how those, absolutely. And you see, I mean, for those of us who don't look back on the past and learn from it, I mean, it's a constant battle. Even if you have a kid, you guys have kids?
No, it's a lot of work. Yeah.
So you have a kid, or so you have a younger friend or whatever, and they're going through the same things you're going through, and you give them advice, but they still do what they want, and they still make a mistake, and you're like, I told you so. Like, it is kind of human nature, but to an extent, we saw how Nazi Germany left unchecked men to such power, and then wants to take over the world, right? So you got to do some fighting against evil. That's what I kind of chalk it up to.
Yeah, I would agree. Japan was in the same boat at that time. Italy was kind of joined that side. And then post World War II, you can say the Soviet Union was a bad actor. You know, generally you look at the Soviet Union's track record and you go, not so good, right? What impact were they having in the world? Were they out doing good things, or were they out doing bad things? And you can kind of add it all up over time. Vietnam War, definitely a mixed topic for the U.S. It's interesting because Liem is Vietnamese heritage. My mom is Vietnamese, so I'm half Vietnamese. I literally wouldn't be here on Earth without that conflict. So it's a especially critical historical moment to understand how I got to be here. So there's a pretty good Ken Burns documentary it's super long, but it kind of lays out the facts, and you can see, it was complicated, and it was a mixed bag of how the U.S. got involved there, and it was a messed up story. And I think what you guys are kind of pointing to is, if you go into a big conflict, if you go into a war, and then years later, you look back and go, did anything really change? Did we really fix anything? It's hard because you want for those lives to have counted for a resolution. You want the good result. But sometimes it's not possible, right? You can have good intentions and do all the right things and still have a shitty result, I guess. Maybe.
And adding to the good intentions, when I talk to people like Jack, I think you have like your perspective is more well-rounded. And then there's other people I talk to that are just hardcore, just straight military, I don't know, a stereotype. What's the word I'm looking for?
Show me where the bad guys are, I'll shoot them.
Yeah. And I feel like their perspective on freedom and justice and whatnot, it is too hardcore one way. And when I back up, I try to look at the whole picture of what the government's doing. And I just scratch my head more often than not. But then when I talk to people like Jack, I'm like, man, that's great that we have people like Jack being involved and being able to share that story, that side of it.
Yeah.
Because I think lately for me, I think, Emmett, you know me, I just don't understand what the government's doing sometimes. It's frustrating. We're the number one country in the world by such a far amount. And yet I just don't understand our focus sometimes.
Yeah, I wish I had a good answer for that, but I don't think anybody. I think one of my favorite sayings is more lately. If you don't listen to the news, you're uninformed, and if you do listen to the news, you're misinformed.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah,
we don't get any of the right and this is that bias that we talk about is, it used to be, or at least I guess I want to remember it this way, where growing up, you get a lot of information, and then you take that and you use your own moral compass to decide what was right and what was wrong, and your own history and your own experiences would help you to dictate what you felt was the right thing to do or not do. Now they're pushing everything down your throat, left and right.
Yeah.
And I consider myself more of a conservative person. However, I do think that the majority, like if you had 1 million people in one big, area, right? And you asked 1 million people certain questions, I would say that 80% of us would meet in the middle on a lot of things.
Yeah.
It's just that the extreme on the very left and on the very right that are always jockeying for position and trying to influence incentive towards their line of thinking, right?
Yeah.
So they have to push a very aggressive agenda in order to make any change. But I certainly don't like the direction that the country's going in right now. That's for sure. I
agree with that.
I'm not a big fan. And it's hard because I'm very patriotic, and I wish. I think to myself, is there something more I can do? And I was like, I could just try to get what information I can, but in my head, I don't know whether any of this information is right or not. I mean, I can listen to information and say, I don't know why you just said that, because it sounds like you're super biased, and it sounds stupid because it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
And what you're saying doesn't make any sense. Now, you made it make sense because you skewed all these different things in order to let it go with your narrative. But I wish people would just have a little bit of faith in humanity, give us the information, let us make a decision, and have our own damn opinion.
Yeah.
You don't have to push it down our throats.
So if you could be in charge, what is one thing for the U.S.? What's one thing for the U.S. that you would like to change, if you could? if you were the boss.
If I was in charge, I'd be hiring people a lot smarter than I was to do certain things, certainly, and I'd be delegating a lot. Yeah. So biggest problems, I think, I feel like there's a lot, actually.
Because you can point out problems in the U.S. without even touching politics. You can say, hey, here's a major problem. Here's what I think the solution should be.
I think our idea of education is highly skewed. It's a really old system that doesn't really play into today's world. The things they're teaching and how they're teaching them. I mean, what is the goal of school? Is it to give kids a basis of information so that they can figure out what the things that they gravitate towards and are passionate about or do well at or achieve well high to a high caliber at. And if the goal is to provide them with a bunch of information and then see what they gravitate towards, I like the idea of that.
Yeah.
But it seems like they're still teaching things that may not need to be taught anymore. They're certainly not teaching some things that should be taught.
Yeah.
I think one of the biggest problems is everybody thinks that they need to go to college. College is a wonderful thing, and it's a wonderful experience. And if you can afford to go to college and spend 2 years effing off so that you can grow and learn what kind of person you are and have great experiences.
Yeah.
Some people do take it a lot more seriously, and they go to college and they're in and out in 4 years.
Yeah.
I wasn't one of those people.
I heard 8 years.
It was the best decade of my life. But
I agree with you totally. I think the standardized testing is really ruining America, in my opinion.
I mean, kids are going to be good at different things. Why don't we allow, if there isn't a way for us to do this yet, but you have to ask yourself, is anyone working on that? And if they are, and if they've come up with something, how are we not giving it a chance in certain places? Because I haven't heard of anything. For instance, entrepreneurship. Not everyone should be an entrepreneur. I don't care. I love listening to all these people say, these motivators talking about how everybody should be an entrepreneur. That's not the case.
Right.
There are worker bees, and there are warrior bees, and there were, you know what I mean? Like everybody's got a different kind of personality and a perspective. Some people want to be paid to go to a job and then leave that job and leave everything behind and go home and have a family and have kids.
Yeah.
And not worry about work the next day.
Yeah,
and be paid a reasonable wage for it.
Would you say it takes some extra motivation and sacrifice to be an entrepreneur? Like,
yeah, especially these days, because I feel like more and more and more people want it and want it now, right? So when we order on Amazon and we can get something tomorrow and not to have to leave our house, that's pretty amazing. That shows that just about anything can happen, right? So like we've gone from, oh, I'm going to order this thing and it's going to take you a month to get it, and then maybe you could have anything you want and you can have it tomorrow.
Yeah.
That shows how far we've come in the ability to be able to do those things. But it also does a couple other things. I'm losing train of thought because I think I had a couple of different ideas on that. But
no, you're doing good.
when we go back to we're talking more about the kids and schools. And stuff
we'll go back to education. I like your Amazon point because I think the three of us are old enough to remember a world before the internet. And like, if something didn't exist at the store down the street, then it just didn't exist. It wasn't like you could find. There was no way to find I know there's this thing. This guy has it, but I don't know how to get it. I don't even know how to find a catalog to buy those kind of things. So just that change in our world is a massive shift in our ability. Like yesterday, I was searching for. My mom's getting older, and I know that you have these handles that'll help you get up from the toilet, like this little stand that goes around the toilet and it's got handles. And I'm like, how do you find that? You just go search on the internet. Super easy, right? But prior to the internet, it's like, well, fuck, where the, do I got to go down to the hospital and start asking around, or what's the, where do I even start? Yeah. So it's a different world of convenience in that way. But
and I guess with the direction that I was going with that is that leads to entrepreneurship and people are a lot of times unwilling to make sacrifices so that they can get where they want. If they can't get it right now, they're going to keep settling for what they have because they don't want to sacrifice more so that they can have more later.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like if I told you that you can open a business today, but you would make little to no money and have a great chance at failure for a couple of years. And then if you succeeded past the first year or two, that you might make a little bit of money. But after a decade of doing it, you will feel a level of freedom that most people don't get to have.
Yeah.
Why would they? Well, I really want to go to Mexico this year, so I'm just gonna, I'll keep doing what I'm doing now, so I can pay for that Mexico trip. I want this car, so it's certainly a sacrifice.
Yeah.
But I find that kind of thing is worth it. It's worth it for me, but I have employees, right? If they were entrepreneurs, they wouldn't be my employees.
Yeah.
And they do a really good job.
Right.
Like, I hire people who are motivated, who are educated, and who have more of a self accountability. Like, I don't want to micromanage somebody. That's not the kind of person I would hire.
Yeah.
However, there are businesses which kind of require that. Like, they need someone to micromanage them all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a place in the world for all of us.
Yeah, you're right. There's a different attraction to, like, hey, if I get this job, I gotta make sure I show up at 8 and do a decent job, and then as long as I keep showing up and making the boss happy, then I'll get a decent paycheck and get my insurance, and then I can have my car and pay my rent, and there's a certain security in that, right?
Yeah, there's certainly nothing wrong with that. I mean, I don't know why people start to think that it's, and this is when we're talking about school and education, it kind of all circles back to it. People ask me, what do I do? And I no longer say I own a gym. I say taxes to toilets, because there is no job that I don't do.
Yeah.
If the toilet needs to be plunged, I plunge the toilet.
Yeah. That's an entrepreneur.
And to elaborate, it's not likely me who clogged the toilet, right? Right. But you think to yourself, oh no, I could never do that. Well, then you're setting yourself up to say, you're only capable of doing this much. No, you're only willing to do so much. And what you're willing to do is going to directly relate to what your end result is. Like, how successful do you want to be? Yeah. I'm willing to do anything within morality and ethics of my own space, right? But there's no job beneath me. So I haven't actually counted the number of jobs I've had, but I want to say I've had 70 or 80 different jobs in my life. Yeah. And that means I've done everything from stocking grocery shelves to cutting grass to digging ditches to working at a financial institution, to selling financial annuities.
Wait, are you saying that bodybuilders have stronger poop that tends to clog up toilets more? Are they eating all beef and just pooping bricks? Is that what's happening? For our listening audience, Jack just did an awesome funny. Squatting.
I'm feeling very comfortable right now. Okay, I'm going to tell you something. How old are you guys?
I'm 38.
I'm 44.
38. 44. Okay, me too. So if there's one thing I've learned is that if an old man comes out of nowhere and tells you something that sounds stupid, it's probably profound, right? Listen to what the man has to say. He's got 80 years worth of information and he's just trying to pass it on, right? And in this instance, I was
secret knowledge.
I don't even remember where I was, but I was at this like networking event, and this old guy, he taps me on the shoulder and he's like, "Don't push when you poo." And then he walked away, and I was like, "Oh my God." I was like, okay, I'll never do that. Okay, I'll never do that again. Listen to the old guys.
They know magic wisdom from the wizard.
Stuff they don't teach you on the internet.
I guess the logic there, you don't want to blow out the O-ring. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
So that was pretty funny.
Eat your veggies.
Eat your veggies. Oh yeah, you got to have some fibers.
So we were talking about, I guess, the America going down the shitter, huh? We got Amazon, we got education, we got...
Yeah. Oh, you asked the question what I would change. And the reality is you kind of have to, I feel you have to reinvest, right? Yeah. I don't feel like kids are given the opportunity to learn what kind of person they want to be. I feel like they're being force-fed a lot of information that's biased. And, you know, it used to be we had the opportunity to do all these different things, go out in the street and play and whatever. But, you know, times change. I like video games as much as any other kid does, right? So, you know, to say that that's the only way for you to go and have fun. But, you know, we need to interact with people. We need, I think social media has gone really, really far off the deep end to the point where we're all putting something forward to make our lives seem better than it really is so that we impress somebody that we don't know.
Yeah.
My girlfriend just flashed me.
So. Damn it. Get that on camera.
That's not allowed on social media.
I can blur it out.
Yeah.
Was she also just blowing her nose?
She's very funny. But I feel like you have to reinvest and restructure some things so that we can provide these new skills. I mean, look at how far the world has come in what, 50 years? Like how much more has happened in the last 50 years or 80 years, say, than has happened in 1,000.
Yeah.
In reality, right? So like, we've put people in space. We've developed the computer. We've got computers in our. I mean, it wasn't that long ago when the highest tech thing was a beeper, right? A beeper was, for those of you who don't know, a beeper is something where if somebody wanted to get in touch with you, they could beep you and send a phone number to you so that you could then go to a payphone or your home phone, lift it up and dial, right? Because we didn't have cell phones and we didn't have this other stuff, right?
Yeah.
And now we've got computers in our pockets, right? But what are we doing with it? Like, are you using that to fulfill your life? Are you using that to just fill space?
Yeah, we grew up in a time where there wasn't computers all over your house, and like we knew this idea of computers, and you could play video games on them, and you'd go to like a school like library, and then wait for your turn on the one computer there to do the thing you thought you had to do. So it's weird how ubiquitous computers have become in our lifetime. Like me and Liem are sitting in a room. It's probably 20, 30 processors in here.
Oh yeah.
It's ridiculous. Yeah. But we literally grew up in a time where the highest tech thing in your house was the television set. And you'd watch that, and maybe it had a cable box on it. And then if you want to do something more technically complicated than that, you got to go somewhere and find the resources. If you scroll the clock back further, generations before us, people were farmers, right? If you grew up on a farm, you helped your family farm that land and you grew those crops, and then your parents died and you were the farmer, and then you had kids and they would be the farmers after you. So your idea of, or your statement of how much the world has changed is really, I think, super true, that you know, the world is changing so fast. It's changing within a generation, within our lifetimes. The world is a remarkably different place than we could have ever imagined. Yeah.
And when you take that exact same perspective and you look back on how we've changed over the generations, few people start to think about the opposite direction. Like how much further are we going to change in the next 50 years? If technology's getting faster and faster and faster, even the kids now will complain that they had to type on a keyboard or speak into a thing in order to get some information versus just thinking, you know, and it just popping into their heads or whatever. You know, I mean, you never know in the direction which is going to happen. But, you know, I love the idea of us progressing as a species, right? I mean, but I think that there's a lot of crap in the world that things will probably get a lot worse before they get a lot better. I constantly joke about the fact that it's either going to be zombies or an alien invasion that has to bring the world together. Because before, you know, a lot of people can't look past your race. A lot of people can't look past your gender. A lot of people can't look past your age to see what kind of a person you are. I think that's super narrow-minded because there's a lot of really great people of all different types. And actually, that'll lead to a conversation we should probably talk about, because when I was in college, one of the best experiences I ever had was I got the I wouldn't say it as much as I'm very like America, patriotic, you know, red-blooded American-ish.
Yeah.
I've also done a lot of things that a lot of people haven't done. For instance, I did a study abroad, and so I left for a semester and went to a different country and lived in a different culture.
Where'd you go?
And, I went to Finland.
Excellent.
Yes. I don't know anybody else who's been to Finland.
Yeah.
I mean, I know Finnish people who have never been to Finland. No, I'm just but the thing behind that was that I knew I wanted to do a study abroad. But because I was never very good with language and never gave it a whole lot of attention and barely knew anything, I was not fluent enough in Spanish or French. Hell, my English was barely good. But
I talk English.
I'm Southern, so you know we say y'all and whatever. Anyway, so I went to my college, and I went. I had seen a flyer in months past talking about do a study abroad, and I thought to myself, there's no way I can do a study abroad if I don't know another language. But I was like, I really want to do it. So what do I need to do? I got another year left of college. What do I need to do? So I went to the main professor who was in charge of all the international students. Yeah. I said, hey, I'd really like to do this, but I'm not proficient in any of these other languages. What do you suggest? And he's like, well, we actually have had a relationship with a college in Finland that we have never sent anyone to yet. And in fact, and we've had this relationship for nearly 2 years, and no one has ever opted to go. And I was like, sign me up. So they actually gave me a stipend. So as much as I was paying for college, I got a bill, and they were helping for that. They gave me a little bit of money to help cover living expenses. It was still really expensive to do, but the course requirement that I had to fulfill was something called cross-cultural communications. Yeah, and a lot of people haven't even heard of that. And basically, it's this study of cultures and how people communicate and how different people are. Yeah. And it doesn't necessarily mean somebody's right or wrong. I mean, we can just be different, right? Yeah. And that is a hard thing for people to grasp. If you go to a country and everyone thinks a very different way than you, does that make? Am I showing up to a place that was formerly? I think Finland was a part of the Soviet Republic at one point, right? So. You showing up in a place that still has kind of a communist background to it. You wind up running into a lot of different types of people, most of which haven't traveled to the United States or experienced anything American. And here I am, the only American in the school showing up. Does that make me the only person who's wrong? No. Everyone just has a difference of opinion of me, right? So
you're just the only guy that wants a cheeseburger for dinner.
That was probably my fondest memories of college, was going there. And it was challenging in a lot of ways. It was challenging because it was another one of those unknowns. Like, I don't know anything about Finland. I mean, I Googled a few things, but to show up at an airport and hope somebody picks you up and then get on a bus and go to wherever and then show up at an apartment that you don't even know who you're getting a roommate, but he's another international student. You don't know who that is. You've never been to the school. You've never been to the country. You don't speak Finnish. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of growth potential to occur. So I opened my heart and my mind to it a little bit, and I made a lot of really great friends who I still keep in touch with. A lot of people from Germany, France, and Spain, and obviously the Finns. And I learned a lot as far as I studied international business while I was there as well, but my core principal class that I had to take was for cross-cultural communications. And it really opened my mind to the fact that, people are just different. And it's not about tolerance so much as it is acceptance. Because you can tolerate somebody and they'll aggravate the shit out of you. But accepting the fact that people are different, I feel that, it's okay to have a difference of opinion. You don't always have to agree with me.
Yeah. That's an incredible experience. So for our listeners, Finland is super North Europe, like super.
Yeah. So it's considered, so there's, I guess it's, looking back, if I can remember the map, there's like Finland, Sweden, and
Norway.
No, Norway, yeah.
Yeah, I think Norway.
And that's referred to as
Scandinavia.
Scandinavia. Thank you very much. I'm glad you're keeping up with this. And it is far north. And the only mistake I made was going during winter.
Yeah.
And I'm Southern, so like I'm used to really hot weather, and we don't have
your
snow.
Balls off, yeah.
So to show up and be frozen for a few months was kind of a lot to handle. But and there was that one day of the year where I think we had no sunlight.
So very far north, yeah. What else can you tell us about Finnish people? Do they like eating stinky fish, or what's the
oh my God!
Like
so a couple of things. One, I don't know if it was because in college we're all big drinkers.
Yeah.
But I think the Finns are super big drinkers, right?
Just stay warm.
I'll say on the downside, because of the lack of light during winter months, up in Scandinavia and especially Finland somehow, there is a high suicide rate.
Oh, bummer.
People get really bummed out and sad because there's no light, right?
Yeah.
So they'll overcome that by either going to a tanning bed or going to the gym, or so there's health and fitness that can help overcome that. But for whatever reason, there's a pretty astounding suicide rate out there. Also, if you ever get the opportunity to have a thing called salmiakki, don't do it.
Salmiakki. Avoid the salmiakki.
Don't do it. It's kind of
it's whale vomit.
It's liquor. It's like licorice, but it's like 100 times stronger.
Oh.
I can't believe it. Actually, it's a candy. It's not.
Oh.
Yeah. Do they speak English there, or what class?
So yeah. Mina puhun vaha suomea.
Hello.
Mina olen amerikasta. It basically says I'm an American and I speak a little bit Finnish.
Yeah.
My name is Jack, that kind of thing. Their language is so unique. It's really hard to follow. It doesn't really, a lot of times you'll find like Spanish will have some roots in English, right? Like you could listen to a Spanish word and there may be a word that relates in English, and it's a little easier to learn that language, especially when you write a sentence. Maybe the way that it's laid out is a little differently, like the word is in front of another word instead of after a word.
Yeah.
Whereas in Finland, the Finnish language is really, really unique. I want to say the longest Finnish word is like 57 characters long.
Oh.
They take a word and they put a pre and a post words on it to make bigger and bigger to mean this meaning, right? So you could say this word and it's basically a paragraph.
Oh, so instead of making a new word for cell phone, they'll just add in all the parts that add up to a cell phone.
It's more along the lines of
mobile computer device which sits in your pocket.
It's instead of having a full-on they're still having conversations, and it's just that I don't remember what language it most relates to, but it wasn't of that continent, right? It was from somewhere very, very, very far away. The only other language that was even similar to the Finnish language. So it was just a really unique language to try to learn.
Sounds like difficult, yeah.
It was. I wasn't very good at it. I mean, I wasn't good at languages in the first place, but
yeah.
I mean, what's funny is that I can still like count.
Nice.
And stuff like that. But one of the things I did do is I wanted to join a gym because I didn't want to, it was dark and, you got to get out and be active and stuff like that. So I joined a gym, and one of my German friends wanted to learn how to work out. So he taught me German and I taught him to work out. So I learned more German than I did Finnish that semester.
You could say "spot me, bro" in German.
Do you know the German word for virgin? Oh, you know what? This is probably super inappropriate. Never mind. It was a joke.
You could say it.
No, already. You can't leave it hanging, man.
Guten Tag.
International traveler, Jack.
So I haven't told that joke in 25 years.
Yeah.
That's funny.
But I think that kind of fun helps you relate to strangers, right? To not be too uptight and to not be too worried. You know, when you meet new people, to not be entirely afraid to joke or to break the ice. I think that helps.
I think it is too. Like, I don't think. Well, everybody's a little guarded, but not everybody. But a lot of people are really guarded when they meet new people, right? So they don't know what they should say or shouldn't say. That I think it's good to not want to be offensive, right?
Yeah.
Your goal shouldn't be outright to just be a jerk.
Yeah.
But there's a little pros and cons to that. I mean, obviously, I know we're going to have a variety of listeners, and somebody's probably going to find that really offensive, and I'm sorry.
As a German virgin, anyway. Sorry, Hans.
But yeah, I find that whole thing helped me to have a better understanding of Americans.
Yeah.
Right. When we come here, especially now when we're a two-party system and people are like, you're either this or you're that. And I think people label themselves as that, but I think that most of us will meet in the middle on a lot of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's okay to have a difference of opinion. It doesn't mean I'm going to hate you.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't, you know, if you hate somebody because they have a difference of opinion of you, you're the one with the problem.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to have the conversation, if you want to go through it to have a conversation, two things should happen. One, are you doing this for you or are you doing this for them? Mm-hmm. Two, are you talking to somebody who's willing to listen, or are you just talking at each other? And then you figure out whether you need to have this conversation or not. But then in a good environment, like if you guys have a difference of opinion of me than I do, then obviously we could sit down and hash out the things that are on our mind that make us feel the way that we feel. Yeah. Because we may not all have the same information, or in this day and age, we're all getting information from different places, and that information could be wrong. Yeah. So I kind of take it as my own track record, my own history, my own experiences help me to figure out. My gut helps me to figure out whether I think you're full of it or not, right? And you can usually tell right away. But some people don't have that. Some people just...
They fall for the BS?
Yeah.
I think you've touched on an important point there. If you're picking a side, then you're playing the game that somebody else designed. The whole political structure, our government, the way that we elect politicians, it's all kind of rigged. It's all kind of dirty with lobbyists and campaign money, and it's a screwy game.
It is. And you see how a lot of those things were there with the best of intentions and then have been skewed in such a way to ruin everything. Yeah. Like lobbyists. Like my understanding of lobbyists is that not all politicians know everything, and they may not understand that there's a need for something. So there's a lobbyist who gets paid to go and educate this politician on why it would be a good idea to have blah, right? Or do blah or whatever. Yeah. But then it turned into something a whole lot worse than that, right? Like there's people that are seriously abusing the system, but that's just it. Like there's no such thing as a pure goodness and pure evil. Like, right. You can develop something with the best of intentions, some kind of utopia, but it's never going to be that, right? It's just going to be, we're going to be the best versions of ourselves we can. Yeah. There's going to be shitty people. That's, if you don't get that by now, come on.
Yeah. I think the trouble is when the shitty people get into power, right? When they have the ability to affect us.
Yeah. Yeah. But that we let them, right? Yeah. Like, and could it be a lack of information, or did they buy our votes, or did they say all the right things to our face with the intention of doing something different.
Yeah.
I mean, politicians get a bad rap, but probably for a reason. There's a lot of good politicians, right? Most politicians, I believe. Maybe there are.
Can you show me some?
I believe. Well, I think most of that stuff should occur in local government, right?
Yeah.
So when I think about local government, I typically feel that at least initially, that's where most politicians get started. And the intention there is to make their community a better place. I mean, why else would you do it? I mean, nobody knows what power is like you until you kind of get a taste of it. And then maybe that just goes a little bit too far and you think your opinion more than everybody else's. And how could they be right if you know you're right? It's a hard road to walk, that's for sure. And I can certainly see how so many politicians go wrong. Because we probably need a constant daily reminder that they are not in charge.
Yeah.
The citizens are in charge. You're supposed to be a representative of them.
It's supposed to be a public service position, right?
Yeah, and it's supposed to be temporary.
Yeah.
Right? Like I do believe that term limits are kind of a really big thing that has yet to follow through. How can that not have happened? I don't know anybody who thinks, yeah, it's a great idea for somebody to stay in office for 30 or 40 years or 20 years or 10.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, you may get a little bit better at the job by understanding the ways to work the system, but the system's already the problem.
Yeah.
So I think we need to have fresher faces in there. I think that they need to be consistently revolving because, one, politicians weren't really a thing, right? It was you stopped being a farmer to serve your community for a period of time, and then you came back and you were a farmer. Yeah. I mean, you were always the farmer. You were just now the voice of your community.
Yeah, ask Jimmy Carter.
And now it's not like that. Like they're lifetime politicians, and not just lifetime politicians, but it's generational. So their kids are going to be politicians. Their parents were politicians. So that I don't like that because that's a really skewed perspective. How are you going to have a voice that accurately represents your community? How can you speak on behalf of a community that you aren't in touch with?
Yeah, I think some of the stuff you said reminded me. I've heard that there are senators that don't own cell phones and they've never touched an email because they have staffs. Like they're super old, right? They're 70, 80 years old. And they ain't gonna.
Wow, no way.
Because if you can imagine, so emails and cell phones and stuff, this is in the last 20, maybe 25 years. So to them, they were already 50, 60 years old when this new shit came out. But
that's hilarious.
Yeah, but think of how integral this is to the American life for this person to not understand that, to not share that experience with us. They're clearly not a part of our community if they have no idea how that stuff works. All they understand is the power and the manipulation and the money and the workings of politics. And like you say, generationally, this is their community, is living there, in those halls of power and writing laws and rigging the system, right? So it's fascinating.
Yeah, it's almost okay. I certainly believe in the idea of America, and I certainly believe in the Constitution. And I think, I'm gonna touch on this real quick. I saw a really funny meme the other day. It says, if you think this generation is smarter than the last generation, 100 years ago, when you bought a car, it was 100 years ago. I think it was like 60 years ago. 60 years ago, when you bought a car, in the owner's manual, it would show you how to adjust your valves. Yeah. Today, it says, do not drink the coolant. Or do not leave the battery or something like that, right?
Yeah.
We are not. I mean, there's differences in the knowledge that we have now, but I feel like we're ignoring the knowledge that they had then.
Yeah.
And things are changing, but I don't necessarily think that that's always for the best. We have to remind ourselves of where we came from and the reasons why we implemented these rules and laws.
Yeah.
So I believe in the Constitution. I believe in the right to bear arms. I believe that they were smarter than I was. And I think that they thought this through really, really well. Could they see into the future 100 years? No.
Right.
But they had to look forward and see the potential for the problems that we're having now. And that's why we have the Constitution. And it's supposed to help reel in those problems, right? So that we don't get too out of hand. And I feel like we're getting out of hand anyway.
Yeah, Liem talks about nerfing the world a lot. And if you have to tell somebody don't drink coolant, then that kind of points to the previous generations might have been tougher. They might have been a little more resourceful, a little bit more independent and self-sustaining. And it was a different world, right? It was a tougher world. You could walk around America now and be a total idiot and not die, right? But there was a time when you had to be smart enough to not get killed.
Have you guys seen Idiocracy?
Yeah.
Love that movie.
It was too true.
It's a documentary. It's absolutely. And I do blame it on warning labels.
Yeah,
were a great idea until you realized you had to put a warning label on everything for everybody. And then what is it? Darwinism. That's the fittest shall survive. That kind of thing. Yeah. So now we have a bunch of weak people who are weak-minded, and they probably never read the label in the first place, really. So.
And I think that nerfing also points not just to that, but also to our over-litigious society, right? There's a society of just getting sued everywhere for every possible misstep in such a weird way that I, as a person walking through America, I'm not responsible for anything I do. Anybody else that causes harm to me, I'm going to sue you for millions of dollars. So there's this weird lawsuit cloud that hangs over everything we do and steers our behavior in such strange ways that you don't see in other countries.
No, you're absolutely right. I wish there was a way to fix that.
And as a business owner, I'm sure you're certainly aware of this cloud of litigation, right?
I think I find myself in a unique situation, but I don't give myself credit for a lot of things.
Yeah.
But I do give myself credit for the culture that I have built in my club. At my gym, we draw a different kind of clientele. Typically, it's people who are sick and tired of the big mega gyms filled with 1 million people.
Yeah.
Maybe they want a little bit more private environment. Maybe they want some place that's not as intimidating. Maybe they want a place that feels a little more homey or a little more, like their own. Yeah. Like, is it at a gym at home, right? So it's just a very different environment.
Yeah.
So the people who want big, crazy dance club gym, go there. Right? And then we draw a different kind of personality. And I think those personalities gravitate towards me because I wanted to provide a gym that felt like home. I wanted to know people's name when they walked in the door and provide an old school interaction where you build a community. And that allows a couple things to happen. One, they're going to be more successful because they're going to show up more often. Yeah. We're going to turn to their third place. So they go from home to work or the gym. So we're the third place that they go. And they're the only other place that they spend a lot of quality time at. So they feel comfortable there.
Yeah.
And I want to know everybody who comes to my gym, and we interact. And we have a lot of like-minded people in my club, but we also have a lot of people who feel differently.
Yeah.
So I don't judge people. And I certainly don't push my agenda on anyone else. Like I have my own perspective, but I think it all leads back to that for me, with being able to have a community and be able to share that kind of environment with people.
Yeah.
It's very fulfilling for me.
Well, because the gym is about fitness, and as long as people are in there trying to get fit, then you're happy about that.
Yeah, and it turns into so much more than that. Like some people, first of all, a lot of things happen to you when you do exercise.
Yeah.
Now this could be any kind of exercise you want, but a gym environment provides you with a lot of variety for strength training and cardiovascular training and everything in between. But endorphins are released into your blood system, into your it's the happy hormone, basically.
Nice.
And it helps to it's an outlet for you to deal with your aggression and your rage and your pain and your all the negative stuff. It's a place for you to put that energy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And some people may not be feeling that at the time, but it doesn't matter. It's a place for you to work off that energy, and it's a return. There's an immediate reward for that, where you feel better immediately.
Nice.
Just by doing a little exercise, you feel better. And it's not just your body, it's your mind.
Yeah. You
get better clarity, you sleep better, you have better focus, you have better energy throughout the day. Like it's a immediate change.
Yeah.
Now the bigger results, like, hey, I want to lose 50 pounds or 100 pounds or whatever, that just takes time and consistency, right? As long as you keep showing up and choosing to do a little bit of work every day, you're going to have change. But the immediate reward, and people penalize that a lot. They're like, I have to go to the gym to work out. No, you don't. You get to. We only get one body. You're going to take care of your house, but you're not going to take care of your body.
Yeah.
You can replace the house. You can't replace the body.
That's a great perspective.
Yeah, it's definitely, and we try to teach that as best we can, you know, and providing people with a different perspective may allow them to be a little more enlightened to the fact that it's not a penalty to work out, it's a reward to work out. Yeah. Not everybody has the money to go to a gym. Not everybody has the, I'll say the time, but that's not the truth. Everybody has the same 24 hours in a day. You can make time to go to the gym. I don't care what you say. I don't care what you're.
I got 2 jobs and 4 kids, man. I got to ride the bus to work.
Right. Well, I could come up with a workout for you at home, but you're still not doing that workout at home, Marty. Right. So
I got to eat all this fried chicken, Jack. It's a special on Tuesdays, and I get the bucket. It's delicious. Sorry, I'm just being silly.
No,
you're making a great point.
That is my go-to. I have been known to drive to LA just to go to Roscoe's, just to have fried chicken and waffles.
Shout out to Roscoe's Chicken and Waffles down in LA.
Love that place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are some unique strengths, or what would you say some of the strengths of your fitness center compared to other ones?
Well, I think when you surround yourself, I'll say not just in fitness, but as a relative rule for me, when you surround yourself with like-minded people who are goal-oriented, who want to accomplish something, that's infectious, right? Like you feed off of that, and your own desire for that, and it will manifest.
So if someone wants to join your gym because they want to be an Instagram photo taker with their body, is that wrong clientele?
No, actually, we get all kinds. We don't get a lot of really young people in the gym, and I think the reason why we don't get a lot of young people in the gym is because they haven't yet experienced a variety of gyms. We get people in their 20s and 30s and 40s, and hell, I think we've even got a couple in our 90s, right? Wow. So like we've got every generation. But everybody that comes to my club has usually been to a big gym and had not the great experience, right? Like in my gym, when you go to another gym, if you go to a big gym, you have to wait for parking. You have to wait to check in. You have to wait to get to drop your stuff off in the locker room. You have to wait for equipment between sets because there's so many people. Yeah. Or you're avoiding going to the gym at the time you really want to go because it's so busy. And that turns into avoiding the gym altogether because it's so busy, or I can't make time when it's not busy. Whereas at my club, we only draw people from maybe 3 to 5 miles away. I do have the occasional person who will drive from the southwest side of town and drive 20 minutes to get to us, or 25 minutes to get to us, just because they love our environment so much. But most people start because it's convenient. But why they stay is because we know their name when they walk in the door. Usually a conversation where me being owner operated feels a little different than a lot of other clubs. Whereas if there's a problem, you're not talking to some random Joe Schmo who doesn't care. You're talking to the guy who invested his entire life in the building. Right? So your opinion matters, your goals matter, your success matters, and you're not just another number, right? So we don't sell tens of thousands of memberships, so we can know everybody coming through the door, or at least have a general idea. You know, I may not know Bob, but I do know that Bob was in the Air Force and he's a veteran and blah, or Judy's a school teacher or whatever. I may not know that everything about her, but to provide an environment in which people come and feel comfortable, feel welcomed. One of the worst compliments I ever did get was when people say, you know, they go to the gym all the time and they take a break. Yeah. And then they feel bad because they didn't show up, and they knew that I was thinking about them.
Jack's watching me.
Yeah. And it's like, you know, they felt bad that they didn't show up. So then the next day they showed up, and I was like, it's just another level of accountability. Yeah. And we all need accountability. I don't care who you are. Yeah. We all can benefit from accountability. We may not all like it. That's for damn sure. We may not like accountability, but accountability leads to success, period. Yeah.
I think you touched on an important point there, where if you know Jack is going to notice if you're gone, you know, so I'm at LVAC, and yesterday I stepped in there for the first time in a year and a half, you know, because coronavirus. So pre-pandemic was the last time I hit the gym, and you know, my arms are paying for it now, but you know, literally nobody cared. You know, there's a whole, it's a machine, you know, and so great place to work out, but different than if I knew somebody was going to notice or somebody was going to smile. You know, if I was on the fence and I go, you know, I'm always happy to see Jack, and you know, I'll swing by there, you know, knock out a set, because I'll see my buddy, right?
Which LVAC do you go to?
Over on the west side here, Flamingo 215. Yep. Yeah. Okay. So
trying to remember if I knew not all Anytime Fitnesses are owner operated. Like I have a friend who owns 9 different Anytime Fitnesses, so he can't be at them, all of them. Yeah. But he does hire people who genuinely care, right? Yeah. Like I think that's a prerequisite. It's a requirement. Yeah. You can hire anybody and teach them a job, but you can't really teach them to care. So you get a feeling for people right away, and if they don't care, they typically don't stick around as employees very long.
Yeah, there's an Anytime over here on Rainbow. I think Rainbow and
and I think the owner is there.
Yeah,
actually, I want to say that's one of the locations where it's a relatively new owner. I think he's been there for 2 or 3 years. I think they've done a reinvention recently where they remodeled the location. Yeah. That was actually, if it's the Rainbow location that I'm thinking of, it's south of the 215. Yep. That was the very first Anytime Fitness here in town.
Oh, wow,
So it is probably 15 or 16 years old. Yeah. But they've remodeled it 3 or 4 times since then. Yeah. And I met the guy, really nice guy. I would recommend giving it a shot. Yeah. And a good thing is a lot of people can walk into a building and figure out whether they feel comfortable there within one or two visits. Yeah. But we usually give everybody a week for free to try it out and see if they like it, because honestly, I only want you there if you want to be there. Right. My goal is not to sell a membership to every person that walks through the door. Yeah. Because we've sold memberships to people who were miserable people. And as much as I tried to be a positive influence in their life, they were the kind of person who maybe it was the moment in time in their life where they weren't really allowing that to happen. Yeah. So, I mean, I give everybody the benefit of the doubt. I don't want to assume that everybody's just a jerk or whatever, but you know, at some point we can just be friendly, and for whatever reason, they just stop showing up.
Yeah, I know some jerks. You're right.
And some people just want to be left alone. Don't get me wrong. We leave people alone too. Like it's not like I strike up a 30-minute conversation with everybody who walks through the door. Yeah. It's just a greeting. And
but there's another key to what you're saying though, is when you go to a gym, you're around a bunch of people that are motivated to do something good and energetic and positive, and to be around that kind of changes your outlook, as opposed to not being around people that are trying hard. I think there's something that infects your mind, because if I'm walking around at the DMV, I'm feeling like, man, I'm a pretty fit dude. But if I go to the gym, I'm like, fuck, these dudes are in great shape. Like I need to step up my game. Right.
I'm glad you touched on that.
Yeah.
I'll tap into that right there. You know what? If you walk into any gym, I don't care if there's 10 people in the building or there's 100 people in the building.
Yeah.
The misconception is that you have to be in shape to go to the gym. And I think that's the silliest misconception you can have.
Yeah.
Everyone has a starting point. I don't care if you're 200 pounds overweight or 100 pounds underweight.
Yeah.
Like everyone has a starting point, right? So everybody's just working towards their own progress. In my location, we're just not judgy, and we're super helpful, and we're educated, motivated. And the more awesome we are in providing you a phenomenal experience, the more likely it is that you're going to tell all your friends, neighbors, coworkers, enemies, everybody that come on down to Jack's Anytime Fitness, because it's great. So,
what were some
were
of
you going further with the whole everybody? You walk in and there's people who are really fit.
No, just when I walk in there, I want bigger shoulders. Like,
yeah. Well, when we're done with this, we can talk about, at some point we can talk about fitness as an example. We can run through a lot of different scenarios.
Yeah. I will say this, if I do a workout, if I go to the gym, the effect it has on me is that after that, I will make healthier eating choices, because I don't want to undo the positive fitness. To me, it's like a filling up kind of, like I just did some good things for my body. I don't want to go backwards now with my diet.
Yeah. That's a good point. I find that there's people, like in life, there are people on both ends of on the spectrum, right? There's people who go to the gym and feel just like you.
Yeah.
Where the more and I'm the same way, where, for instance, if I'm wearing like a heart rate sensor or something like that, and I track how many calories I really burned in that workout, and I'm like, oh wow, I did a good job. I burned 700 calories.
Yeah.
And I go home, I'm not going to eat ice cream and cake and bullshit, because it's super calorie dense, and I'm not going to have that negative impact. And I'm going to make better choices throughout the day because I did that.
Yeah.
But there's also the opposite, where there are people who are like, I'm going to reward myself.
Yeah.
Heads up, it's not a reward. It's an indulgence. If anything, it's a penalty, right? So you're making a negative impact on your body and your mind by caving to something that you want that's tasty. I know my mom used to say, moment on the lips and lifetime on the hips.
Yeah.
Right? So it's hopefully that people have the ability to open up their hearts and minds to new things, right? So if you have a skewed perspective where you think going to the gym allows you to go and eat whatever you want afterwards, maybe you need to surround yourself with different people who can help you to understand. Very likely, if that's the case, you're not in the shape that you want to be in, and it's because the choices that you're making right then, right? So, but then again, don't get me wrong. Like I've also, in times where I'm in the best shape of my life, I may go to the gym and have a phenomenal workout and kill it and be like, I earned my lunch. Right? So I'm going to go eat whatever the hell I want.
Yeah.
And there's other times where I didn't do that, where I was like, I went and ate whatever I wanted, and then I was like, oh crap, I really should go train. So I didn't earn my lunch yet.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of people, and I run into all kinds of people. So I guess that helps me to open up my perspective to the ability that, hey, people can be guided in the right direction given the opportunity. But people, it's surprising the level. Ignorance is often used in a derogatory term. Yeah. I don't use ignorance as a derogatory term. Ignorance is different than dumb, right? Wow. If you are ignorant, it means you have not yet learned.
You just don't know.
That information has not come to you, right?
Yeah.
Versus if someone tried to teach you and you couldn't get it, then you may be dumb.
Now you should know.
Or whatever, right? Like, or it just might not be your thing, right? But Like I've run into people who are in their 20s or even in their 30s who have some serious misconceptions on fitness.
Yeah.
Like they think they have to do these killer workouts, and they have to really struggle with their diet and eat perfect. And if they don't eat perfect, that there's no reason to be good at all. And it's just not accurate. And it's not healthy.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. So I see some people that go into competitions, and there's fitness models and like weightlifting physique competitions. And I think if we see too much of that, if we see too many movie stars that are in their prime condition, that's not a realistic thing. Because a lot of times they're cutting weight, they're dehydrating, they're doing crazy things to look that way. That's not a reasonable goal, right?
It is 100% accurate. And the thing is that women have, or not women in general, but like the topic of women having seen that for forever, like with Barbie and the cover of Vogue and all these other things over a lifetime, that there is like a body dysmorphia type thing, or a misconception that you think that is what ultimate beauty is, where honestly, there are beautiful people and there are less beautiful people, but we're all beautiful people, right? Like we're all our own unique individual person. We've got our own shapes and sizes and strengths and weaknesses. I mean,
yeah, I'm beautiful, Liem.
That's human kindness, right?
Yeah.
No, you're not.
Oh shit! I was laughing at your joke.
Sorry.
we're all unique and how we should work out.
Yeah. So when people, even I have that a little bit, where you see something and you want to get to that.
Yeah.
But when people are competing, the thing that you don't get is that people are. I did just compete. So I did a men's classic physique competition in March, and I also did one the prior March. So those were my first two competitions ever.
Gee, what are you wearing a shirt for, bro?
But there's a couple of big things you should know about bodybuilding. I'm gonna label it bodybuilding, and what I mean by bodybuilding is men's physique, men's bodybuilding, men's classic physique, women's physique, figure, fitness. There's wellness. There's all these different categories. Let me just call it bodybuilding, because you're building a better body.
And are you talking about when you go up on a stage and there's people judging, right, and scoring you somehow, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So with that, you're walking up on stage and they're judging you. They're not judging you on how good you are. They're judging you on all of your imperfections. So it is a really hard thing to do, to walk up on stage and know that they're not telling you, good job, you look phenomenal. They're looking at you and saying, you need bigger shoulders.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's also the fact that you're training and dieting to look a specific way for a specific moment in time.
It's very unnatural, right? Yeah.
Yeah. It is not something you can maintain. You can get to it, sure, but it's a brief moment in time. Like when I weighed in for my competition, I weighed 190 or 192 pounds.
Yeah.
2 days later, I'm 200 pounds, right? So it's fluids, it's water, it's dehydration, it's a lack of carbohydrates, or it might be a surplus. It's a variety of things that you manipulate to look a certain way for the moment you walk on stage.
Yeah, it's crazy.
When you're taking these photos and you're looking this super awesome, it's brief moments.
Yeah.
And even the people who are movie stars, they use these same things to look good for that one moment where they have their shirt off.
Yeah, that shot.
If it's that shot and no other time, it's for that photo cover, that cover of the magazine. Yeah. So the reality is it's not possible to get in that kind of shape and stay in that kind of shape. And for another thing, it's not healthy, even if you were able to mentally F yourself up enough to want to try to stay in that kind of shape. It's not healthy. Like your body needs a certain level of fat in your body in order to, in order for it to really operate.
Yeah.
Like your organs, your circulatory system, your muscles, we all need a certain level of calories and fat and nutrients and function. Most of the time, those people, I'll bet you $1,000 that when those actors get on stage to do that line for that movie with their shirt off, they probably have to do it 10 times because they can't even remember their lines because they're so delirious.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You can't even think. You need fat, you need calories, you even need sugar a little bit. Not sugar, but like I'll call it carbohydrates.
Yeah.
Your body needs cholesterol. Like you'd be surprised the things that your body needs. We're a pretty well balanced machine.
Yeah.
And if you feed yourself good, clean, whole food, it's hard to overeat that. It's just that when we start to do the other things like eating fast food all the time, if you cooked all your own food, even if you ate some junk, it would be really hard. If somebody asked me that the easiest way to explain what a good diet is, I said, if you could kill it or pull it out of the ground, you can eat it.
Yeah.
If you had to pull it out of a box or process it or microwave it in a package or whatever, it's processed food. It doesn't really digest the same way in the body. There's a lot more preservatives and that kind of stuff does weigh on your physique. So if you were to eat good, clean, whole food like lean meats and proteins and carbohydrates and vegetables and starches and just about anything, right? Yeah. But if it was relatively natural, it would be really hard to overeat enough for you to gain too much weight.
Yeah, I think you're pointing out the problem of obesity in America is that we have so many delicious options everywhere we go. Mm-hmm. Even if you go to the grocery store, the produce section is not a huge part of the store. It's a corner, right? So even if you wanted to eat super healthy, it's very difficult because we have so many other cheaper, more delicious options. Like, how do I stop myself from
cheaper and better? Absolutely.
Yeah. How do I stop myself from that spicy chicken sandwich? It's $4 and 2 minutes later, I can have that in my mouth. So it's a hard.
And I do the same thing. And don't get me wrong, I still indulge in that stuff. And the only reason I do competitions is because I live in a fitness world where if I can show what I am capable of doing, I can show you what you're capable of doing, right? I run a gym.
That's great. Yeah.
And it's a great for the community. Like when people know that I'm competing, they're all on board and they're really engaged with me and they're working harder and they're talking to me about their success. So, and their trials and tribulations as well. I mean, it's not easy, but it's just like anything else in life. If you're uncomfortable, you're probably growing and changing. And if it's easy, it's probably not working.
You
know what I mean? Like anything challenging usually helps you to grow in one way, shape, or form, whether it be physically or mentally or spiritually or whatever.
Yeah.
But you touched on the grocery store thing. I have a hot tip. If you stay to the outside of the grocery store, like if you walk in and you stay to the outside aisle and you make a loop,
the perimeter,
you can hit everything you need and avoid a lot, right? If you walk up and down every aisle, you're gonna likely grab some crap and never show up hungry, right? Like eat before you go and stay to the outside because that's where your poultry is, your meats, your vegetables, and if you do like dairy, you can have all that is all on the outside.
Well, how am I gonna get the Oreos? Those are in the middle, right?
Aisle 17, actually. It was only like 3 days ago. We were in the grocery store and we had done that, and I was like, you know what? I really feel like cookies.
Yeah.
And my girlfriend Abby and I, we walk past the aisle and then we go down there and I say, well, I want these cookies. And she's like, well, I'm not going to eat those cookies. I want these cookies. And I was like, we'll just get both. And then I was like, it's 3 for $5. Let's get 3.
The trap, it's coming. They got
you. Right? But I did it.
Yeah.
And actually, I have a pretty funny joke. I thought it was funny anyway. I wanted to let people know that I got enough nutritional value for the day. I got at least 11 grams of protein because there are 11 servings of Oreos in one package.
Oh.
And I ate the entire package, and it's 1 gram of protein per serving. So I was like, 11 grams of protein.
Yeah, you ate it for the protein.
Yeah. Yeah. The other super pro tip is that if you meal prep, you will, and I always ask people, I say, do you like to be in charge of your life or not? If you want to be in charge of your life, you won't let the world dictate a lot of things on you, right?
Yeah.
Like the world is not going to tell me what I'm going to eat. When I'm hungry, I know I can go to my fridge and I have a meal that's already done that I can grab and eat, and it fulfills me because I'm hungry and it's good food and it's tasty. Like it doesn't have to be tofu and Brussels sprouts all the time, but like chicken and rice or chicken and vegetables or steak or fish or shrimp or, I mean, hell, there's a lot of really good options, and it doesn't have to always be rice, potatoes, sweet potatoes. It's just showing a little bit of restraint. You're not going to eat a bucket of it, right?
Yeah.
I meal prep, and I eat that at least half the time.
Awesome.
So I still go out to dinner. I still have drinks. I still buy a bag of Oreos and eat the whole thing. I just don't do it all the time. Yeah. I wouldn't do that every day. Otherwise, I would be 500 pounds, right? Yeah. And I've been heavy. Like I don't know if I already said this, but I've been within the time of me owning my gym, I've been 250 pounds and quite soft.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is very out of shape, focused on work, being busy. And even though I was in a gym, still didn't make the time to work out or follow a reasonable diet.
Yeah, you're right there looking at the machines.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And then you find me years later, 60 pounds down, walking on stage to do a competition. It's just awesome. Priorities. If you really want it, you can really make it happen for yourself. You just have to make it a priority and make some simple changes and be okay with the fact that it's not going to happen tomorrow.
Yeah. It's
consistency and time and a little bit of enthusiasm or energy going into doing something every day and reaping the rewards every day. And in a month or two, you're certainly going to notice a pretty significant difference. But
I think priority is an important word there, because that's kind of how I look at it. Like you can be busy with work and you can have shit to do around the house, and you can have kids that, require a lot of your attention, and until you make fitness a priority to say, no matter what, I'm going to carve out some time in my day to do some kind of fitness activity. You have to prioritize that to say that is important enough to be a primary part of my day. Whereas, it's so easy to go, I'd love to, but I got these other important things to do. And by the time I get there, I don't have any energy left. You know, it's important for people to notice that difference.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if you guys are like me, but there's always work to be done, right? Mm-hmm. Like there's never been a day where I was like, I don't have anything I need or want to do. I can do nothing. Right? So work is always going to be there. Those tasks are always going to be there.
Yeah.
But just like taking care of your family, taking care of your home, you got to take care of yourself. If you can't make yourself a priority, you will be no good to anyone else for very long.
Yeah.
Right? So make yourself a priority, feed yourself reasonably good food, and do a little exercise every day.
Yeah.
Time and consistency will make the difference in everything else.
Did you have a question earlier?
What were some of your challenges on this entrepreneurial path for you with the gym?
Ooh, I had a bunch. I had a couple of good ones. So when I opened, I will say that I'm typically pretty lucky in life, but they say luck is, what's the phrase? When preparation and
opportunity,
right? Opportunity come together. Huh. So I made a couple of really good decisions when I was younger. One of which was actually when I got back from the Marine Corps. Yeah. When we got back from Iraq, a lot of people either had people to take care of while they were away, So they had families that were, that their monthly payment, the money that they were making was going towards their families and helping to cover them.
Yeah, supporting.
I was still single at the time, and I was in college, so I didn't have any kids or anything. So I was just saving my money, right?
Excellent.
And when I got home, other people had done the same thing, but they either went out and bought cars, or took trips, or just went to the strip club. Like, could do anything, right?
That's just making it rain. Yeah. I know military guys that'll go buy like the top of the line, $70,000 Camaro. And it's not a good investment. I mean, it's awesome if you're a young dude, right?
Right. But I started to ask myself in those moments, I said, what do I really want to do with at first, I really thought I was going to wind up having to have a regular job working at a business or whatever. And I've done that a lot, but I knew that I kind of wanted something more, and I was still in college, and I thought to myself, what would be the best use of my money? I said, if I bought a house, I am now a veteran of 4 and more. We get benefits for, and my benefit being the VA loans for homes is that you can go 0 down and get into a home.
Yeah, VA loans are awesome if you can get them. They're the best. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm a college student who bought a house and rented out 3 rooms.
Nice.
And I was living for free, if not even making a little bit of money.
Yeah.
And then I just continued to save. And then Hurricane Katrina happened. And then, actually my house was actually not really affected because of where I was located.
Yeah.
So housing prices went up a little bit, and then I graduated and sold my home. And then that was a big part of how I started my business, because I have an equity in a house from making a prior good decision.
Yeah.
So coming up with money to start a business was a bit of a challenge, but I actually, I had help, and I had a lot of money saved from making other decisions. But when I opened, the process of building out my location. Now, for those of you who don't know what that means, is like, if you go and you find an empty building, there's a thing called tenant improvements, where you need to, you lease a certain amount of space. Yeah. And then you put up walls, and you put in flooring, you put in fixtures, you paint the walls, and you put in bathrooms and do all this other stuff. I didn't know, I've never gone through that process before. So I probably wasted a lot of money that I could have been better at. Yeah. So that was more of a learning lesson.
Yeah.
And when I opened in March of 2008.
Oh yeah, that's a tough economic time coming up the pipe, right?
Hugely. For you who don't know, that was when, I think that was the day they said we have a thing called a recession.
Yeah.
And I had actually signed for my lease maybe 6 months prior to that, and didn't know anything about the economy.
Yeah.
And I had no idea something like that was coming my way. And so that made for some very unique challenges. I did have a friend of mine who came up from Louisiana and helped me to run the gym for a few months. I think he was there for like 6 months, and we lived together and worked together. And he was very helpful in helping to, have somebody there when I couldn't be there, and just being there to sell memberships and to get the gym started when I was out talking to people about the gym.
Right.
But then he had to go home, right? So it was just me for a long time. And that was really hard. And then when the recession really hit, and we lost a bunch of members, and people lost their jobs, and people were losing their homes. And there was a point at which, and I used to never tell anybody about this, but I don't have a problem mentioning it now. There was a point at which I actually lived in my gym. I slept in my office. Now you got to think, there's windows in my office, and the lights are on all the time. So I could turn the lights off in my office, but it was still very quiet.
Yeah.
So I basically slept underneath my desk.
Oh yeah.
At my office. And it's because I couldn't afford an apartment. Now at that point, most people would say, F this, I quit. I'm going to go back to Louisiana. I'm going to live with my parents. I'm going to just recoup, and I'll do better when I get another shot again. but in my head, I thought this was like my one shot.
Yeah.
And I was just a little too stubborn to kind of let that go.
That's awesome.
And,
that's entrepreneurship, right? This is making the sacrifices.
Yeah, and it was something deeper for me too. My mom, I always had a problem with my weight. So I was always, the only pictures you'll ever see of me as a kid was when I was in reasonably good, like I wasn't heavy, because I've destroyed all the other pictures of when I was heavy. Right?
Smart.
Like
Good strategy.
Myself. So my mom brought me to a gym when I was 9 years old.
Yeah.
And she was a very good influence on me to incorporate fitness. And when I went to my first gym, I was like, wow, I could do this. I really want to do this.
Yeah.
So that's when I decided when I was 9 years old that I wanted to open up my own gym. And it was only 20 something years later where I was actually able to do it. But you got to have a goal. It may take 20 years to get there, but when you get there, it's worth it.
Yeah.
So I know I went off on a tangent a little bit, but back to the challenges.
Yeah.
It was funny because one of my members who became a dear friend, his wife noticed, because I was pretty low key, like nobody knew that I was living in the gym, but somehow, some way she figured out that I was living at the gym.
She's watching you.
And she mentioned it to her husband, Rick Fan, who's just they're both fabulous people. They're some of my dearest friends. They've been with me through some very tough times, and they've been there for me and super helpful. So I would say always give help to people who you feel are, not everybody's deserving of help, but it's compassion for others. I won't go off on that. But anyway, they were really, really helpful. And he came to me and he's like, bro, are you living at the gym? And I'm like, yeah. And I was like, it's not a big deal. Like I've slept in the dirt. Like I know what it's like to sleep outside in the desert in Iraq in the middle of it's horrible. I've lived in some horrific living conditions. This is nothing.
Yeah, nobody's shooting at me. It's fine.
Yeah. What's that?
Nobody's shooting at me. It's pretty cool.
Nobody's shooting at me today. So, but he's like, I've got a spare room. Do you want to come stay with us for a while?
Yeah. And
I was a little hesitant, but I took him up on that offer and I stayed with him for, I guess, a couple of months. And then, things were shifting in the right direction at that point. And then I was able to move in with another friend and, start paying rent, sharing an apartment, doing all that other stuff. But everybody has these moments of lows, Don't judge somebody just on the highs that they've had. Yeah. Judge people on, on the strength of their character and maybe the trials and tribulations that they've had to go through in order to grow into the person that they are. And you don't know that until you get to know somebody.
Yeah. That's quite a story. So if somebody wants to open a gym, so kind of retracing a little bit, you got to find a spot, right? Somebody's got to have a building they're going to rent to you. And so you got to navigate this world of like commercial leases, right? So these landlords aren't out there to actually help you start a gym. They're there to try to get money from you.
Correct.
Right? So they've got an empty shell of a building and you got to somehow turn that into a gym while paying them some market rate for that space, right?
Correct.
So then you got to come up with money to build out the place, to certainly buy all this equipment. If you look at one piece of gym equipment, start adding them up, that can be a pretty big number pretty quick. I'm assuming there's some kind of franchise with Anytime. So can you speak a little bit about, so if there was a super determined person right now that, my life's mission is to open a gym, what ballpark are we talking about today? Would you need like 50 grand or 100 grand to open a gym, or what's?
It's probably a little more than that now. When I did it 13 years ago, I had about $100,000 and I had to borrow the other $200,000 in order to open my club.
A lot more than that. Wow.
There are a lot of programs for that. Right. Yeah. So Small Business Administration will basically, if you write up a little business plan and you've done your research and you're willing to invest your own money in it, it is very likely that you can get a small business loan. So with that, typically you have to have about 30% of the money yourself and be having some risk on your own. You can't just say, I have no money, I want to open a business. Like you have to work in advance to get that. You can, there's also things called halo investors, where you can borrow money for a short period of time or a long period of time and have somebody loan you the money for a higher interest rate. You know, there's always ways in which to get money. But that takes time and research as well. It's a lot of times it's connections. But in my instance, I had about $100,000 of my own money, and I had to borrow the other $200,000 from the Small Business Administration, or it's a government program, in which I pay that back over, I think it was 6 or 7 years. And it's a reasonable interest rate. I don't know what it is now, but at that point, that does a couple of things for you. A, it allows you to be able to start this business in the first place. But it also creates a great big liability for you, because you have a few $1,000s to pay back every month. You need to make sure you can pay that back, right? So,
were you about 30 years old at this point, somewhere in that ballpark?
I believe when I had just moved to Las Vegas, I just had my 30th birthday. So it was maybe I was 31 when I must have opened the club. I took a long, because I had just graduated college. I had moved to California. I worked for a company that dealt with investments, and finance was not my forte. It was just a job to get me out of Louisiana. And then it wasn't really my thing. So I actually, when I moved to Las Vegas, I had a friend who lived there. I lived with her. It was really inexpensive. And I had I was sitting on that money from selling my house. So I actually took a little time off, and I was like, oh, I'm going to take a few months to put together a business plan and get things sorted, find a building that I want, that in a strategically good space, which means that it has to be in the right area with a certain amount of minimal competition, a reasonable rent base that you pay per month, and the right community around you, meaning that people have to make a minimum amount of income to justify you charging a certain amount, right?
Right, because going to the gym is kind of a luxury thing, right? Is that?
It is. It is. You can certainly work out at home. I mean, it's not going to be nearly as good, and there's a lot of distractions and that type of thing. But I would certainly say that going to the gym is a luxury for sure. Luckily, it doesn't have to be. When I think about joining a gym, I think of it as one of the best bangs for the buck that you can get as far as entertainment is concerned. Because for $35 a month, you know, to go to a gym, or $35, $45, $55 a month, something like that. That's less than a date night, even on a cheap night. Even if you went to have a dinner and dessert anywhere, you're going to spend nearly that on one date night, right?
Even at Chili's.
Even at Chili's.
Even Denny's will run you a good $40. Plus, the better shape you're in, the better your date's going to look.
That is
the fitter you are.
And you can get cheaper on your dates because you're in better shape.
Hey now.
And the fitness.
I like Arby's a lot.
We're getting the new one down the street.
All right.
Anyway, so I guess
I totally derailed you there. So you had a plan that you had some time and you had the analysis, the business plan to take a swing at this by taking a big loan, but in a way that's kind of on scale with a home loan for most people, right? So instead of buying another home, you bought into a business.
Except you don't get 30 years to pay it back, you get 7.
Yeah,
or 6.
An aggressive payback,
Yeah, it's big.
On a gym. Go ahead.
I was just say so once you've chosen your space, first of all, usually you decide on what franchise you're going to go with first, because that will dictate maybe where you can and cannot go. Because when they sell you a territory, that's usually based on a location, as well as a population density and a radius of where you're at.
Yeah, you couldn't open another Gold's Gym back then, right there, right?
There was one of the reasons why I chose the space is because there was what looked to be a Gold's Gym opening up, but it had been sitting vacant for a year. So the building was there, and it looked like they had been even selling pre-memberships or something like that, and nothing ever happened with it. And then I was like, God, if they haven't opened up in a year, when can they open? And they don't really announce that kind of stuff. They keep that on the hush hush.
Yeah.
Then I signed a lease, and then I borrowed all this money.
Yeah.
And then they opened. So I was like, shit. And then,
good plan, Jack.
But I chose Anytime Fitness because I felt that their core principles aligned well with mine. Like, you know, if I could have done anything, I loved Gold's Gym back in the day. Like, I loved the idea of that because of the whole Mecca and bodybuilding and fitness, and it was just an iconic brand. Yeah. But people who own Gold's Gyms, are already millionaires. You can't just say, I want to open a Gold's Gym. You have to have like $3 million liquid and $3 million to invest and another couple $1 million in fixed assets. And I mean, it's kind of a really, really big deal, right?
Holy
it's
cow,
not. So I said, well, what can I do? Right? I could do it on my own, or I can do a franchise. And then I looked into a couple different franchises, and I narrowed it down to Anytime Fitness. And then I actually flew to Minnesota to, I checked out a couple local Anytime Fitnesses in Louisiana as well as here in Las Vegas. Yeah. And then I went out to Minnesota, which is where Anytime Corporate was based, and then kind of just interviewed them as well as them interviewing me, making sure that we were both a good fit for each other. Right. And locked it in and paid for my franchise fee, which varies. I want to say it's probably around $50,000 now, but maybe it was 20 or 30 back then. I don't remember. Yeah. And then they have preferred vendors in order for you to order equipment, because equipment is not typically ready available. They have to manufacture it, build it, ship it to you under your specifications. So what color is it? What pieces do you need? That kind of stuff. Yeah. And then you go through the design process by saying, hey, here's the space that I have. Hey, Anytime Corporate, what do you need me? What requirements do you have of me? And then you build a plan to build the location, and then you build out the location. Yeah. And then your equipment arrives, and you set everything up, and then you're able to open your doors. But before even the doors open, you're selling a promise that we're going to be awesome. Yeah. So we do a thing called a pre-sale, where we unlock our doors once at least the paint's on the walls, and you have something you could see. Yeah. And people get the gist of the space. You can say, we're selling a heck of a deal for you to join before we even have the equipment in the building, but you get a deal and we get new members before we even open. Right.
Makes sense. Yep.
And then you open, and then every day is kind of a hustle to do the right thing, to wow people with great customer service, to be clean, to be well maintained, and to also kind of put yourself out there so that people know that you're there, right? So some kind of marketing. Yeah. And then the daily grind of that. And after 7 years, I finally paid off all the debts.
Awesome.
And it takes a little time. People want to know, sometimes people want to know that you're legit before they come and join. Yeah. So, I mean, there'd be people who'd wait a year or two to make sure that we're still going to be in business before they dropped $100 on getting started at a gym, because they don't know. Yeah. But I've been really consistent. We actually have, when I look up reviews in Henderson, my gym has the best reviews of any gym in the entire city.
Awesome.
Now, and that's good quality reviews, and that's a certain number of reviews.
Yeah.
And I think we get somewhere between 4.7 and 4.9 stars across the board. Maybe there's a lot of 5-star reviews, but then there's the occasional person who says,
Right.
I hate you, you suck, 1 star. We can't make everybody happy. We're doing our best.
Right.
But in comparison to most other clubs that either have little to no reviews or have hundreds of reviews, we certainly rank the best as far as best overall.
After you did the build out, and then so you got around the 300,000 that you're working with, you did the build out, you pay the fees. What type of when you're looking at that, how much time did you have to operate on that before you started looking at membership and the stress? What was going through your mind during that time?
You had to sleep under the desk, dude.
I used to sleep under a desk, bro. Okay, so I guess my original thoughts were, I was hopeful, but I knew that I had worked at other gyms, and I had known the things that I loved and hated about those gyms. So I tried to create the best community that I possibly could by instilling certain things in my members, because when I sell a membership, I know them at that point. It's not, hey, I'm Bob, I want a membership, go. It's, you know somebody. And in those moments, you get to say, hey, make sure you put your weights back. Hey, make sure you're wiping down your equipment. Hey, make sure you're not a complete jerk, right? Common courtesy, gym etiquette, those kind of things are really helpful over time.
Yeah.
But so building a community was one of my bigger concerns. I knew that it would be very valuable to have a good member base, and that it would build upon itself if I did the right things for these people and they loved the place, and they would be willing to talk about it. And they'd tell a friend or two. And I also knew that if I did a bad job, they would tell 10 or 20 people, right?
Yeah,
so there's that trade-off, right? People don't always talk about all the things they love, but they do like to talk about the things they hate.
Yeah.
So doing the right thing and being consistent about it, and I think that was what was on my mind the most in the beginning.
Yeah.
I also didn't realize I was opening in a recession at that moment, right? So like, I didn't know the struggle was real, but I did know that I wanted to get out to local businesses. So one of the first things I did was, create the flyers and go to local businesses and say, hey, I'm your new neighbor.
Yeah.
Just want to let you go, we're in this together. I'll refer you, you refer me, getting referrals for businesses. And then, offering specials to their employees, and that was helpful.
Nice.
I even went down to the VA and the VFW and the Marine Corps League, and I tapped into the things that were helpful, like that I already had a connection with. Yeah. That I was able to say, hey, this is a better known small business, and us small business owners need to stick together, and us Marines and us veterans need to stick together.
Yeah.
But it was building my reputation over time. It was. I wish it could have gone faster. I know that I've heard rumors. I've never met them, but I've heard rumors of people who opened an Anytime Fitness and sold enough memberships before they even opened to where they were breaking even the day they opened the doors.
Wow.
That was not me.
Yeah.
There was fierce competition in Henderson and in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
It was a recession. It was like a perfect storm of everything I had to overcome. So it was very challenging, and I had to be the best I could possibly be. So I was always working at that. And I got help from corporate as well. Like, hey, what kind of guidance do you have? What more can I learn? What more can I do? So they were constantly giving good feedback and asking me if I was doing X, Y, and Z. And if I wasn't, then I would go and do those things.
Yeah.
And the rest is kind of like having a nice physique. It's time and consistency. If you just keep showing up and you're doing the right thing and you're putting forth an effort, then you should make it.
Put in the work.
Put in the work, right?
Yeah.
It's not going to happen overnight, and it's not going to happen if you're not willing to make the effort.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. So I guess it was all about just putting forth my best. I mean, I did work a lot. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, if like we have, the way our gym works is that when somebody wants to join, we give them the key to the gym. It's a little proximity card. It's about the size of a domino, and it fits on your keychain. And you walk up to the member entrance, you swipe your proximity card, it unlocks the door for you. You come in, it's very safe, very secure, and it works really well. But we're only staffed during a portion of the day. So if that being 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. where you can come in and get a new membership.
Yeah.
So I don't have to staff the gym 24 hours a day. However, I had the gym phone forwarded to my cell phone. I was taking appointments at 6 a.m. and 9 p.m. Like you name it. I was like, you want a membership? Come down. I don't care what time it is. I'll meet you here.
Right.
Even if
you are the business. Yeah. That's.
Yeah. So literally, I mean, I'd say there was any one thing that I did. It was a lot of little things. Creating good relationships, asking for referrals. It was everything.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay. I'm gonna take us into the final question section, unless there's more you want to say on that topic.
No.
Okay.
I'll say as a whole, entrepreneurship is not for everyone.
Yeah.
But for the few of us who are willing to put in a lot of sacrifice, time, energy, and money, it is the most rewarding thing you can ever do. Because for me, I love going to work every day, even on days where there's problems. I mean, no day is trouble-free, right?
Yeah.
But I have a really close relationship with all my members. They know me. They know they can reach out to me, and I feel rewarded because as a servant of theirs, right? Like I am making sure that I provide the best of everything for them, and I am rewarded by their success. I feel good that I help them to get fit, to get healthy, to deal with their own problems, if you will. You know, like people come there for fitness, but they also come there for relief, right? Mental relief, stress relief. So I'm very rewarded. If you can find a way to tap into that, no matter what it is, providing happiness for others or providing an opportunity for happiness or growth for others is super rewarding.
Awesome.
All right. First of the final questions. What great daily habits do you have?
Go to the gym.
I do try to do some type of fitness every day, and it doesn't necessarily mean in the gym. Like Abby and I could just go for a walk. You know, it could be something as simple as just getting outside. I think fitness is a big importance of me because I typically, I love TV and I love video games and I love that kind of stuff. So it's easy for me to just sit on the couch and do nothing, right? To be entertained, to be distracted.
Yeah.
But that's really all it is a distraction from the things you need to do. I certainly, if I sit down and watch 4 hours of TV and I get up and I'm like, wow, that went fast. I can't believe 4 hours went by.
Yeah.
But if I get up and I'm productive and I do the things I need to do, I feel so much more. I feel accomplished. And you don't feel a sense of accomplishment by binge watching all the Marvel movies. You just, I mean, I'm going to watch all the Marvel movies in 24 hours. And that's not the kind of accomplishment, right?
Yeah.
But if I get up and I knock some stuff out and there's always going to be work to be done, but I feel good having done those things. So just getting up off the couch and making sure that I'm doing something productive makes me feel good.
All right. Next question. What do you think or know of cryptocurrency?
I wish I knew more about it. I had my first taste of it. My buddy Rick Fan, who I mentioned before, told me, you know, this new cryptocurrency thing is going to be big. And I think I put $100 or something like that into Bitcoin, and then a month later pulled it out because I needed it because I was broke. It was a few years ago, right?
Yeah.
And had I left my money in there, I'm sure I would have a lot more money right now. So there was the boom. Since then, I've tried to learn a little bit about it, and I've certainly thought of it as more of less of a daily trading thing and more of a savings account for money that I could be investing other ways. But if it goes missing, I'm not devastated. I'm not putting tens of thousands of dollars into it. But if I put $50 a week in it, or $100 a month, or $500 a month, or whatever it is, it's a savings account. And I'm sure, I feel like there's going to be a level of growth that will justify my putting a little bit of money on the side and not really playing with it. So I won't be daily trading it, but I do try to pop in on it every once in a while. Like I use Voyager to do my buying and selling. It's an app, and I found that it was really easy to use, and they offered 40 or 50 of the top coins. Nice. And I feel like it's kind of one of those things where you really never know what's going to be great until it's great, right? I did have a good friend of mine buy what's referred to as shit coins. And it's really hard to buy because you have to move through multiple platforms and do multiple transfers, and it's challenging. And you can easily lose all of your money. But he put in $1,000 and it turned into $350,000.
Ooh, damn.
In a period of 5 or 6 days. And actually it was at 450, but when it dropped down to 350, he traded it in. Right. So, I mean, there is money to be made, but there's also, that doesn't, that's not the only thing he did, right? How many times did he lose $1,000 in order to make 300? Will that happen again? Probably, but it's playing, and that's what he does for a living. He plays with the stuff day in and day out, and that's how he made a good choice, right?
Take the wins and the losses.
Throwing it at the wall and seeing what sticks is the way he puts it. That's my buddy John, good dude. Very, very insightful. He's taught me a little bit, but I'm still pretty ignorant about Bitcoin or crypto as a whole. But I have a little money in it, and I check it every once in a while, and I'll probably shuffle it around a little bit here or there as things change, and I do learn some things. But I won't be daily trading it though.
I think that all sounds pretty smart. I mean, you're saying, put in a little bit that you can afford to lose, and as a long-term run, if you're not daily trading it, it'll probably go up, and you'll probably walk away with a lot more than you started with.
I mean, especially with the fact that it's still such a new thing. I mean, the way it was explained to me by my buddy John and my buddy Darren, who both love this stuff, is that it's so early on. It's kind of like the stock market before the stock market was the stock market. Like everybody puts money in stocks now, right? Even if you don't know anything, then you have a 401k and you select the category or whatever. And it's a relatively safe bet. But there's going to be highs and lows in that. There's going to be recessions. We're not immune to that. It happens every 10 or 20 years. We go through something, a cycle. So I feel like if it's just something I put on the side, and if I get to it and it's not worth anything, then I'll just hold on to it. And at some point, if it's worth something, then yay, I got a little investment.
I come from a software engineering side of it. The technology of cryptocurrency is amazing. So I'm super biased. Looking at the code and how it works, decentralization, it is a paradigm shift. It's an amazing technology that I think will revolutionize the world. So I try to tell friends now, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm crazy. But when I look at this, it's like Google, when Google was back in 1998, maybe. And we're there now, and cryptocurrency still has 20 more years before it revolutionizes the world. Maybe it might take longer. It might be sooner. Who knows the date? But I try to tell friends, if you could get in like $10,000 to $20,000, just let it sit there for 10 years, and hopefully that'll be like $1 million or $2 million by then. Because I don't see this stuff. There's going to be the ups and downs, but I see this stuff revolutionizing the world where it's going to eventually go up. So I think it's the future. All right. Next question. If you ever have any cryptocurrency questions, I love talking about it. So feel free to hit me up. I could talk hours on it. I have like so many podcasts just talking about cryptocurrency too.
I definitely need to talk to you then, because I did hear something recently about how they feel like Bitcoin, as much as it is. Here's a good description for those people who don't know a lot about cryptocurrency. Bitcoin being like the first real big name in cryptocurrency. You think of that as the ocean. and then all the other coins are the boats. So when Bitcoin goes down, kind of everything goes down, and when Bitcoin goes up, everything kind of goes up. And
Sure.
and
Yeah.
it should be around for a long time. But I heard something recently where, it's really only growing at a small percentage compared to all these other ones that are growing at a substantially higher rate. So to put all your money in Bitcoin may not be the most beneficial. It may be the safest. I don't know.
I would say it's, I would look at the technology, because Bitcoin is right now just a store of value. The technology, so it came out, I'll call it blockchain 1.0, that it's technology in 2009, 2008.
Yeah.
Ethereum came out, which is the number 2 coin, in 2015. And I call that blockchain 2.0. And then we're reaching a point where I think blockchain 3.0s are coming out. And that's kind of even my definition of 3.0, 2.0 and 3.0, they're pretty similar. But anyways, we lost your video. Hopefully, can you still hear me?
Yeah,
Okay.
I can hear you. Yeah,
So,
coming back.
Oh, you're back.
So investing in Bitcoin, I think, is investing in blockchain 1.0. So like we had, let's go with Friendster, MySpace, and Facebook. Mm-hmm. So I think investing in Bitcoin is like investing in MySpace, where Ethereum right now, I think, is Facebook. It's not the biggest one yet, but I think it will be the biggest one. Currently, I think that's the case. It could change in 5 years if some other technology comes out and I start looking at the horizon and seeing other blockchain 4.0. If there is one, then I would let all my friends know. But for now, Ethereum is the one that will be the big King Kong. And
that makes sense. I mean, I guess if you think of it just from a software standpoint, if you have 10-year-old software and you have 5-year-old software,
yeah,
what is going to be more productive, and how fast does that change, right?
And
time. It makes sense.
Yep. And on top of that, unfortunately, I'll probably get hate from the Bitcoin community on this. Bitcoin's community wants to be they're Bitcoin maximalists. They just want to stay with the world of store of value, and they don't want to change that. And I feel like that is going to be the nail in their coffin in the long run. I could be wrong. I could be wrong on this, and Bitcoin may win the battle. But if they're not willing to change and make changes to their blockchain and make it better, I think that's going to be their demise. Technology is something that needs to change.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
it is changing regardless of whether you change or not.
Yeah. Now to kind of address, I think it's an interesting topic with the ocean as Bitcoin and all the boats are all the other coins. This part I know some of it. I don't know the answer to the other part. So because Bitcoin was the first, so everything's like kind of pegged to Bitcoin. So that's why it feels like it's the ocean and the boats. So say Coinbase is very big. You said with Voyager, there's Gemini, there's Kraken, there's probably hundreds of exchanges. And when you take in the US dollar to buy Bitcoin, for the longest of time, that was the only option for I think from 2009 till 2016, I think. Your only option to get into cryptocurrency was to go through Bitcoin. So it was pegged to Bitcoin. So meaning the US dollar at that time, if you wanted to buy Ethereum at 2015, 2016, you had to buy Bitcoin. If you wanted to buy Litecoin, whatever coin was available at that time, you had to buy Bitcoin and transfer, like you mentioned earlier, transferring different coins to another one. So I think there's a mental, I don't know what I want to say, that you have to think of it as Bitcoin is just the peg thing to go to cryptocurrency, because cryptocurrency is so new. People don't have a correlation to they don't really correlate how much is my Ethereum to everything else. Everything is pegged to Bitcoin. Now, you are, I think, right when you're saying these smaller coins have bigger jumps, but the smaller coins also have potentially
a lot of risk.
Yes, there you go.
Yeah, I heard that too, for sure.
Yeah.
So, you got to pick your coin. Hopefully, pick your coin correctly, and I think Ethereum is it. As for the being pegged to Bitcoin, I don't know when that tide will change. When potentially Ethereum will become I don't know if it would be. I don't know if something would change where Ethereum will be things will be pegged to Ethereum more than Bitcoin. I don't know.
I think you could say there used to be a time when IBM made the most computers, right? And then at some point Compaq, and you have different computer makers. Today you would say probably Apple is making, that might be the biggest computer maker. So as you go through time, there will be somebody who is the biggest dog right now.
Sorry, I have just because I dislike Apple so much. I think it'd be a combination of Dell, Sony. Sorry, I just dislike Apple. I don't dislike Apple. I dislike when people use Apple and they think that they're so smart. I'm a software engineer. I've worked with some Apple people and they think that they're developers. I'm like, no, Apple just makes you feel you're smart, but you're not. So, okay, that was terrible. I'm sorry.
But I mean, just as far as selling computers, right? Apple does a great job of selling computers.
Yes, they do a fantastic job on that.
So you could look at it differently and go, hey, well, maybe I should buy NVIDIA or AMD or the companies that make the processors or the graphics cards, right? So there's different ways you can invest in what you think is the best horse in the race. But certainly today, you wouldn't bet on IBM or Compaq.
Yeah.
Right. So people have been buying into Apple. They buy Apple stock and Apple products hardcore for at least a decade now. So Apple is the big dog right now. But who is the future? We don't know. So I think in the cryptocurrency world, you can say, Bitcoin was definitely the first. Right now, who's the best horse in the race? Probably Ethereum, right?
Yep.
Currently speaking.
Yeah.
So as far as
money from Bitcoin to Ethereum right now.
No, as far as having money in there that you think is going to grow, you can look at the growth patterns of Bitcoin versus Ethereum on any time frames. Like in the last year, if I had bought Ethereum instead of Bitcoin, would it have done better? And looking into the future, what will the growth patterns be? That's if your goal is to multiply your money, right? So you're going to figure out who's multiplying more without undue risk. So I think Ethereum has a pretty good low risk, high growth.
I'm not a financial advisor, but I would advise probably a portfolio. If you only stick with if you happen to only want to pick 2 coins only, I would go 90% Ethereum, 10% Bitcoin, just in case something happens and I'm wrong about Ethereum, and you still have 10% in Bitcoin. In some other people's portfolios, I tell them like 85% Ethereum, 5 to 10% Bitcoin, and then 5% others. There's others. I categorize cryptocurrencies by their maybe they're a super privacy coin, maybe they're a super speed coin, maybe they're centralized. So there's certain categories I tell that little 5%, I tell people to put some in there. But if you want to only choose 2 coins, 90% Ethereum, 10% Bitcoin, that would be my non-financial advice.
Don't advise.
and the other stuff, actually, I know it's not a very scientific thing to do, but a lot of times I went through, and if there's 50 coins, I went and I said, what are the least expensive coins I can buy so I can have a lot of them? I know it doesn't make any sense because it's all values, right? But I was like, if I'm going to put $20 in this or $50 in this or $100 in this and take a shot at it, as my buddy John would say, see what sticks, right? Yeah. So I bought maybe 4 or 5 of the least expensive Bitcoins, not cryptocurrencies. Yeah. And we'll see what happens with that. It's only been a month or so. So,
awesome.
It wasn't a lot. It was just something to like, if something big happens, it would possibly, I find like it would be more likely to occur on something that had a really low value. Yeah. That there would be more substantial change on something like that than there would be that already have a tremendous value.
Yeah, you're taking a side bet on something wild happening.
Yeah, side bet. There you go.
Yeah. So we bought some GameStop and AMC just for shits and giggles. Just see if it does it right. Why not play?
And your AMC's doing pretty well.
AMC's doing well. Yeah. GameStop.
All right, let's jump to the next question. What's the biggest problem for humans? What should we do to fix it?
The biggest problem for humans. Damn, there's so many.
Yeah.
Don't get me started. They're out of
I
shape
would
for
say,
starters.
I guess I start to think about things in deeper meanings, because some of these kind of, as much as you say that these two things are very different, all stem from different things. I think caring what other people think as a driving factor in your life is a mistake. If you're thinking about how to impress chicks or how to impress other people or whatever it might be as why you're going to do something, I think you're leading with something that it can be a big downfall of yours, and you'll never truly, more importantly, you'll never truly be fulfilled, right? If the only thing that gets you going is to impress other people, I just feel like that's not a very fulfilling life.
So internal motivations are better than external social motivations?
Yeah, and I think that kind of stems into being happy, right? Like if you're always worried about impressing other people, the true definition of success in my book is whether you're happy or not. I don't care if you've got $1 million or living paycheck to paycheck. If you are happy, you are winning.
Yeah.
So obviously a little bit of more financial freedom will provide you with a little less stress in your life, and that may lead to a little more happiness. But I think that's all about your attitude more than it is anything else. It's life is throwing all this stuff at you at the same time. It's your perception of the message that's being sent is are you happy or not, right? So like you could say, I want $1 million, and somebody be like, yeah, I want $1 million. And then other people will be like, yeah, but I got to pay 40 or 60% in taxes. I really only made, oh, come on, man. You just won the lottery. You just won the lottery. You're being pissed about taxes, right? So your perception of the message could be anything. Glass half empty, glass half full.
Yeah.
You know, is there a glass? You know, so if you're happy, you're winning. If you're not happy, that it's all in your control. I know you asked for one thing, but happiness is certainly what you should be trying to attain is happiness. And that typically occurs from fulfillment of, other dreams. And I like helping people. So for me, I happen to know about fitness. I happen to be able to help people with fitness. That leads to them being happier. I'm happy that it helps somebody. Win-win for both of us. And I actually get paid doing it. So yay, there's a benefit to it. So.
You philosophical son of a bitch.
Awesome. Next.
No, it's good.
Actually, so then what should we do to fix it? What should humans do, or what if someone gave you a magic wand? What would you do to fix it?
We still have to win the lottery.
No taxes. I'm also, as much as I am an optimist, I'm a bit of a realist. Okay, I would have everybody do a self-evaluation of your life. I know that sounds kind of silly or whatever, but if what you're doing isn't working, giving everyone the ability to take a different path. People think they're stuck where they're at, whereas I really feel like people are choosing to be where they're at. Now, it may feel like you're stuck, but I felt like I was stuck. I mean, the power of positivity, the power of the law of attraction, that whole thing, it has a lot of merit to it. It doesn't necessarily need to be as crazy as you think it might be, but your thoughts create your reality. So if you're always thinking negative thoughts and you're always thinking about debt, you're always thinking about the overwhelming responsibility and blah, 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 you're forgetting to feel blessed. You're forgetting to feel grateful for the fact that you're alive. I mean, the fact that we can draw breath and do what we want with our lives. I mean, we have a lot of freedom here, especially in this country.
Yeah.
So.
Awesome.
So it's the power to change your mindset, huh?
Yeah, I personally like that answer a lot because I personally feel that people don't reflect on their actions enough. they don't think about their impact on the world or even just their immediate surrounding. I personally, probably spend too much time reflecting on my actions, thinking about the things I did in the past, how it affects others, but I try to be a better person because of that afterwards. So yeah, I like your evaluation thought. All right, next.
Learning from your history.
Yeah, exactly. Next question. What's your favorite food?
Ooh, I'm a big tie between
Oreos.
I used to say in the gym, we don't say the P word or the D word, and I didn't realize I was being a perv until they, because I say it's pizza and donuts. They could say it's the pizza and donuts.
Gotcha.
There are days where I go right next door to the gas station and get 2 donuts and a cup of coffee, and that's just like my favorite thing in the world. Pizza and donuts are like my go-to.
Pizza's delicious.
If I'm cheating and having whatever I want, it's pizza and donuts.
Nice.
Awesome. All right, next question. Think of at least 2 friends that should do this conversation. Call them out.
Rick Fan, who he is.
And the last name Phan, Vietnamese.
I love his tagline. He'll on his voicemail he'll say "Have a fantastic day."
Is he Vietnamese?
He is Vietnamese.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And he is fantastic. No lie. His wife is fantastic, and he is living that lifestyle. He's putting his money where his mouth is. He's making an effort. He's keeping a positive attitude. He's doing his due diligence. He's making an effort. He's putting in the work, but he's also reaping the rewards.
Nice.
Like they like to travel. They like to take trips. They like to take care of their family. I love them. So, I would definitely say Rick. Yeah. I've got a lot of friends and a lot of entrepreneurial friends. So it's hard to say one other person. He's the person who comes to mind first. So
that's a good one. Why did Renee think you were a firefighter?
Or why did I think you?
I have no idea.
No. I probably remembered it incorrectly. That's probably my fault.
Why you pretended to be a firefighter, bro? Well, that's a stripper.
Yeah. Well, I dressed as a firefighter as a stripper. Never mind. It was
living your best life.
No, my ex was in law enforcement, so it may have overlapped a little bit, but I doubt.
Okay.
All right. Well, we'll move on. If you think of a second person, just let me know. Last of the final questions. Tell me in a few sentences or less what this conversation was like. If you've done a podcast or interview before, describe the biggest difference. I may use this in a video collage for new potential guests.
Okay. I really liked the way it was set up. It was very free flowing. I threw out a bunch of topics and it was just kind of talk about it. I haven't really talked about the military all that much. I know it was such a huge part of my life, and I know I wouldn't be where I am now. It's just not something I typically talk about. So I guess it was kind of refreshing and what's the word, reminiscent or whatever you want to call it. It brought back a lot of fun memories.
Nice.
So I was glad that you brought that topic up. I liked having 2 people to talk to. I thought that was great because one person may be making notes and the other person may be, engaging me in what I said. And it's always great to have 2 or 3 or 4 people in more than 2 people in a conversation, because it tends to make things bounce a little bit more and you get insight from multiple people and
different dynamics.
I think better.
Nice.
Yeah. Plug yourself, plug your company. How should people get in touch with you? Should they call, or is there any benefit for them contacting you directly, or should they just call the branch itself? I always recommend for people to call the club directly, as my life is a little bit, I don't want to call it crazy. Like I'm all over the place with things that I do and like to do and my free time and everything like that. And I want to make sure that people get serviced properly the right way the first time. So I would always say to contact the club directly, because my staff is really amazing. Tracy, the club manager, is a phenomenal manager, and she's really good about
reaching out to people once they've reached out to them. We have an Instagram for the gym. It's
Awesome.
Hart Anytime Fitness, and it's spelled like my last name, so it's the letter I, Hart, Anytime Fitness. And that's a great way to follow us. But you can always look us up. We are the Anytime Fitness in Henderson. There are 3 Anytime Fitnesses in Henderson. We're the one nearest to Stephanie on Horizon Ridge and Arroyo Grande. We also kind of refer to as the Green Valley area location.
Yeah.
You can always call the club, 702-202-1371. Or you can go to anytimefitness.com and find us there.
Awesome. Was there anything that we didn't cover on your on the business itself that you want to mention? I think we kind of went through like the entrepreneurship, and it felt like we went through it kind of quick there. I had a bunch of questions, but then I was looking at the time. I wanted us to have enough time. We lost your video for a second.
Yeah, I'm coming back. My battery is getting low. That's all. But yeah. I think we spent a lot of time on military and less time on entrepreneurship, which usually is the opposite. People talk a lot.
Sorry, my bad.
I think I have a lot. I think I have a lot more to say about. I think I have a lot to say about living a good life, and that's entrepreneurship and freedom and financial freedom and building a life for yourself and having a great attitude about it. And there's always more to say about that. I could talk all day about that kind of stuff, but. As far as entrepreneurship, Rick asked me once, he's like, if in my parting words, what would you say after we've spent an hour talking about employees suck and customers suck, and there's always these problems and concerns and overcoming these things, and in the end, he's like, what's your takeaway? And I'm like, it's worth it. It's
Nice.
great, right? And people are like, oh, I was not really expecting that. Yeah, but. Again, it's not for everybody. Like, there is certain freedom to being an employee, and there's certain freedom that comes over time with being an entrepreneur.
Right.
Patience, diligence, consistency, and effort is what's required to be a good entrepreneur. It doesn't happen overnight. I know you hear about the success stories that they're the exceptions to the rule. They won the lotto. Most of us put in a decade's worth of work, and then start reaping the rewards. So most people don't want to do that, right? They'd rather get a paycheck now, and retire and have a 401k, and so it's not for everybody. But that's okay. Live the life you want to live. There's pros and cons to both. Hard decision to make, but it's the decision you need to make for yourself.
Nice.
Awesome, man. Let's call this the official end. We'll have to. I would like to invite you for an in-person interview sometime if you'd like to join, and we could just sit and we could just sit and talk the shit about anything from government, more military stuff, anything.
I got a gun question.
Yeah, guns. It seemed like we went pretty deep on.
Can you see my coffee cup?
Yeah.
I didn't even notice.
I didn't even notice. Yeah.
Away. I was like, I'm not looking to offend people. It's not a big deal.
No, that's awesome.
Yeah. It looks like we got a lot of stuff we could talk about next time. So cheers, and thank you for the time, Jack.
Good to meet you, Jack. Pleasure.
It was my pleasure. I had a good time. Thank you, guys.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. See you, man.
Bye.